We are red. Red is on. Time being 4:45.
All right, today is Thursday, September 28th, year 2017. With this meeting of the Tilton Board of Selectmen now come to order. Ashley will be joining us shortly. Shall we all stand and pledge our allegiance to the flag, please?
Do not take an oath. Do not.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very nice. All right.
The NFL also has a rule pertaining to it. They just don't follow it.
Let's peruse through the minutes of September 14th.
I just kind of glanced at this minutes and it says MetroCast meet and greet. I can't even tell you how many phone calls we're inundated with on a daily, weekly basis. Do you have that number? Thank God we posted it on the...
Oh, no kidding.
I can't tell you how many people. Hello. They're all wanting Mr. Neville's number.
Very nice. Okay, so
On the website.
it only took me
exactly
30
where
seconds, but I seem to have lost my
I
time.
pointed it to him.
Would you like one?
It's on the backside.
Oh, is that where it is? Thank you. Saving paper.
Save
I like that.
a leaf.
Gary, confirm when we do it vote.
Under MetroCast, it says Selectman Constantino said she had received several complaints. I also have been a recipient of that, so voiced my dissatisfaction as well as Ashley. So
Now, a reminder, I was not present at that meeting, so that's okay. Be nice to me.
I'm always nice to you.
Maybe all of the selectmen gave examples of poor service.
Okay.
We can add that in there,
Except Catherine, because she doesn't have service.
except for Catherine. She's the happiest of them all. She doesn't even have to.
She still has dial-up.
A short time ago. I had an antenna up until a short time ago.
Under Chief Cormier, Selectman Constantino voiced her objection to the chief for having those signs posted. I'm not objecting to the signs, objecting to the process and the protocol. Probably in most cases, we would probably end up with what we have, but I was objecting to the process and the protocol.
Okay.
Under the solar garden, Selectman Scanlon asked that Tilton residents get priority on the waiting list.
Just call me.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as corrected.
I have one more. Under Chief Cormier, Selectman Scanlon question why is Street Morrison Ave a one-way street?
Oh, yeah, I wanted to look that
That's
up.
a two-way street.
Okay, thank you. I was trying to find that one, John.
Yeah. Was not posted with parking signs. He suggested all streets under 2 lanes wide when cars are parked should be posted.
Under Vicky Virgin Food Drive, it says September 14th will be the first choice.
October 14th.
But this is September 14th minutes.
It should be October 14th, and that's not an available date, by the way.
Correct.
We'll bring that up.
Okay. Does anyone have any other corrections?
Second.
Changes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Since we have a few minutes and Ashley's not here, does anybody have any questions about the minutes, what's going on, what hasn't happened, what's happened? Did we notify the highway department? Selectman Fogg had requested that they go out and measure the non-tree streets. What do you say?
The width,
Width?
right?
Yeah, they have, and I did send him that.
Okay. Just want to make sure that they were notified. Where is New Hampshire Solar Garden at? They came, they talked, they
I
left.
have something under my
Okay.
agenda.
And the RFP for Class 5 road, and I apologize, I haven't had time to look at your agenda.
That I have not.
Okay. That we don't want to wait too long on because 2018 is getting filled up now as we speak.
I really think that we need to have either a selectman or town administrator really go to bat for us with the commissioner of DOT. They've made a decision that they ran out of money, and the mess that they made, a worse mess than what it was, on Winter Street is not going to be paved or skimmed this year. And it's really, really bad.
2017? They have it scheduled for 2018?
Maybe.
But even still, there should be winter binder put down.
It should
There
be
should be no gravel.
You can't, the gravel is about 2 inches lower than where they broke it off to do the pipe. So you have your asphalt here, and then you have your gravel here, halfway through the lane. So when you're driving, you're like this. And it's washboard all the way up now.
So who's going to maintain?
Rock's not gonna be able to plow.
Who's going to maintain it in the winter?
Do we plow winter?
We
Yeah,
plow it.
We plow winter.
He said he couldn't do it in the winter. That's the whole,
In order for us to plow it, they have to put down temporary pavement.
Then we need to make those phone calls.
I'm really concerned with that because I gotta tell you, being on a bus, when you're on a washboard like that,
Did you reach out to Bittern Lane?
No, I
Joyce?
have not.
Back to Winter Street, we may want to reach out to Chief Sitar too, because if the rescue has to go up there for calls.
What we should do is call, like we did before, all our representatives. I mean, everybody. See if we can get them all here, get the chief here, get both chiefs here, I mean, how does the Veterans Home feel about it?
well, or we should contact Pebby. Peggy and find out. Well, they have an alternative to make it on Black Road as well.
Taking down Clark.
But an emergency call is
The ambulance must go up.
Uh-huh, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they
The
do.
chief told me the other day that that's the most frequent call is the veterans center.
Yes, it is. And it's on the right-hand side, so you're going up the hill. You can't even go down the hill to Clark Road to the hospital if you need to. It's in very, very, very poor shape.
Well, we better get that done ASAP, because when does the plant normally close? Sometime in November?
They're almost, Kenny Partridge is down to about where the water company is on where Deb Shepherd's house is.
I saw that.
So they're almost finished that entire project, and it's just gonna be left like that. But we can't maintain it. I talked to Brock, and he said he can't maintain it like that in the winter. It's just gonna be really bad, coming down that hill and going up the hill.
All right. Shall we move on to the police building?
Yep.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, we can fill it in.
Mr. Goodrow, would you like to join us up here? Chief, we're talking about the police city building. You want to come up?
No, you sit there. Of course you can.
Sometimes it's easier to hear.
So the chief and I and the captain met on Monday or Tuesday, was it? And we went over that single floor plan that Gary had sent us. And we tweaked a few, not many, just a couple of, just changed some offices around and added the Sally Port because of the 3 Sally Port. And in doing that, Tim Pearson had, his minimum requirement for a communication room was a minimum of 10 by 10. And we said at least a 10 by 12 or 10 by 15 room. So that got moved to the end, Gary, with those requirements, it got moved to the end.
There's a couple of layouts there, Pat, that
Oh,
I was
okay.
going to explain.
Okay,
The difference
good.
between Scheme A and Scheme B is just that lower left corner that you see.
Yep. I see.
Ideally, what I would like to have is the ability for staff to get into the evidence receiving and evidence storage area without having to go through the Sally Port. So Scheme A does that. That's what I had before. When we added the 3rd Sally Port bay, that ended up pushing evidence storage further down the way it was before. So you can see in Scheme B where evidence ended up when we added the 3rd Sally Port bay. So I did another scheme, I'm not calling it Scheme A, where I swapped the mechanical, communications, and electric room for the evidence storage. So you have the ability now to get into evidence without having to go inside, which I thought would be useful to you folks. So that's the only difference between Scheme A and Scheme B. This is an upgraded plan based on what Pat had relayed to me. The overall square footage is 11,415 square feet. This also shows with a dashed line a carport over 5 parking spaces. That was another thing that Pat mentioned that the chief would like to have.
Well, yeah, that's what they,
A carport?
well, they would like it so that, that this kind of is like a luxury item, not, I didn't even,
over the parking space.
What's the benefit?
a route,
Weather off the vehicles.
whether off the vehicles.
Vehicles for, because if you have 3 Sally Ports and 2 are tied up for search warrants, then our patrol cars are outside and we gotta clean them off before we go to a call or they get a lot.
And if you have a domestic or
So
whatever,
if you have a carport that's open on 2 sides and the wind's blowing,
it's minimal though.
I have a carport, I tell you.
You're on top of an open hill, too.
Yeah.
Depends on which way I remember to face my car,
Right.
which way the wind's blowing. But I can tell you, ice doesn't care.
So that was the purpose of it, so that the supervisors, if there was like a domestic and they needed to get out in a hurry, and they could.
All right, so we can let the committee worry about these things, right?
So the carport is the truly add-on portion of
And
it.
it would be easy enough to identify the cost of that in the
Yep.
documents by calling it an add alternate.
Okay.
It's fairly simple. Well, since
Right.
we're talking about the floor plan, we might as well go to scheme C, which is the next third sheet. You see a side-by-side set of floor plans. I had to come up with a two-story scheme for Lot 6. And we'll talk about that when we talk about the sites. But essentially, and I was out at the site the other day to verify this, the topography that I have from Pat basically shows a front to back downgrade for Lot 6. So I went out there and walked it just to make sure that, because I don't think this topography was done specific to this area recently. I suspect it was done globally, maybe through LiDAR or something. So I just wanted to verify. And there is between 10 and 12 feet was my estimation. It was fairly wooded, but I was noticing as I walked to the back of the site that there is a gradation down. So based on the one-story scheme, the building is fairly lengthy, and you'll see that in the site plan that I show. So there really isn't a good economical way to put the one-story scheme on Lot 6. So I came up with this two-story scheme, which is really a slight variation on what we did for the Rogers Mayer property way back when. So it involves a couple of stairs and an elevator because it's a two-story scheme. Still has the 3 Sallyport bays. So I think
Is it a full-fledged elevator or is it a lift?
it's right now it's a full-size elevator.
Is that absolutely necessary?
The lifts have a certain vertical height that they're restricted to. So right now, do you know how far you're going here?
We're just going from first floor to second.
Yeah, I'm thinking in terms of length though, first floor to second floor. If it, for instance, if it's 13 feet, the LULA, the limited use, limited availability lift.
You have to go
Oh, they
first
had
floor.
told us when they installed it, because they asked us when we wanted to go down to the basement and then up to the second floor.
Well, first floor, if you build it with the sally porch, you have to have at least a 12-foot wall. Because if you, in order to get the doors, the 10-foot wall, 10-foot doors, correct?
10-foot garage door.
So 10-foot garage doors to get in there. So if you seized a van or a pickup truck with lifts on it, it's not going to fit in there with the 8-foot door, just a standard 8-foot door, garage
Talking
door.
about an elevator.
No, but I'm talking about the Sallyport, the walls need
What's
to
driving
be
the height of
higher.
the floor? I think
It's
is
driving with the height of the floor needs to
What-
be a 12-foot.
What we can do is we can do the
You already
research.
used 12
Because the lift
feet.
is going to be a lot less expensive than an elevator.
We can do the research. If a lift works for the height of floor to floor, then we can look at that.
Yeah,
There's nothing stuck.
No problem.
good point.
We really just got started.
So that's the reason for that. So I thought turns out to be more square footage. That's correct. Basically, what you have is, in order to make this an economical framing situation, you end up having the first floor and the second floor be identical in profile. So you end up with 13,460 square feet, something like that. It's essentially 2,000 square feet more, and we can get into the pros and cons of that a little bit later. One of it is 890 square feet of basement storage in this scheme that you don't get in the first floor scheme. Again, so that your first floor and second floor walls line up. That's the reason. Once you add that third Sallyport bay, you end up with an L-shaped piece of foundation that you could use as storage. So even though it's 2,000 square feet more, some of it is fairly inexpensive square footage. It's just basement space for storage.
Yep.
So
That's dangerous for you.
Tim gets a lot of boxes.
I know,
Free up our basement.
right.
and the other additional square footage is devoted to the stairs and the elevator.
Right.
So within our contract with you, does it make sense for us to design for both buildings to see what the cost is?
Well, it was my impression that we were going to nail down the site, and that pretty much would dictate the design of the building. So if we go with Lot 6, it'll be this two-story scheme. If we go with lot 15, I think it's more economical up front to do a one-story building, but I think over the long haul, your heating and cooling will be more in your one-story scheme because your exterior envelope is more square footage, it's a
That's
larger
right.
surface area.
But we also would have to buy the property.
Yeah, I have a summary sheet at the back of this with the pros and cons. I didn't know when you wanted to get into that because I wanted to at least talk about the site
Thank
for
you.
each, if you wanted to.
Can I have one of those things?
Absolutely, I'm sorry.
And lot 6 is the one that the town is proposing.
Correct. So if we start,
Purchase.
Yes, he's accepted right now. Oh, okay, so what if he has, if Gary has an extra one
I
to
do.
follow along with
I
us,
do.
we could pass it to Kevin.
Thanks, Brian.
you're welcome. Yeah. I have two more, if anybody needs them. So if we look at sheet S101, which was at the top of the set that I gave you, that's lot 15. That's the one-story scheme with the most compact parking layout. This parking layout is a couple of thousand feet less than the alternative for that site, which you will see below this sheet. The entrance to the site is off of Business Park Drive, and what I tried to do there, sort of as a compromise between the concern, Pat, that you had relayed to me from the chief, in case the public entry gets clogged up with, a car or two, I've added a third lane to that entry so that it would be staff exit only. You could post it like that, so you'd never have to worry about a vehicle breaking down or somebody stopping in that entryway and stopping you from getting out. In the other scheme, just below it, S101A, what I did was I pushed the building further up the site and added or flipped the building around and put staff and Sallyport entrance off of Sanborn Road.
Sanborn Road, yeah.
So in this particular scheme, you get the benefit of two separate entries, one for the public and one for staff. As I mentioned, this particular paving pattern is a couple of thousand square feet bigger than the other one. Obviously, you've got a separate entrance, you've got a little bit more driveway associated with it. You can see in all of these site plans that the black circles, those are my best estimation of where they did the borings and the probes. I took their small PDF and I just overlaid it on my site and put it down there.
Now, what are you recommending for a foundation for this site?
For this here, because of the 4 to 5 feet depth to bedrock, I'm just saying that this is a slab on grade with a frost wall. And where I've located the building, and I have larger versions of the topo, I did for both sites a regrading so that I could satisfy myself that we can put the building on both sites with a minimal amount of disturbance to the grading. So with this site, we're actually going to have just a little bit of cut in the upper left-hand corner, and we're actually going to raise the grade where the building will sit between 18 inches and 2 feet. So if we've already got 4 feet of cover there, we're going to come up to 5.5 feet, probably minimum. So that's, in my estimation, plenty of frost coverage for our foundation.
And no basement.
No basement.
And the back of the building looks like it's pushed right up against the right-of-way for the utility.
That's correct. That
So-
Eversource.
Straight voltage persons in that office.
Where, Catherine, this right here, you mean?
Yeah, that's a right of way for the
That's
Eversource
what
power
power
lines.
lines go through. Okay.
So those are the two options that I think work the best for lot 15, depending on whether you want to combine entries or have two separate entries. S102 is the layout that I did with the one-story scheme for lot 6, and that's where I realized that it would just require way too much fill in the back of the site, because these are 2-foot interval contours, so as you travel from Business Park Drive towards the back of the site, it goes down 12 to 14 feet by the time you get to the back of the site. So trying to keep the building all on one floor level, by the time you get to the back, you're building this parking lot way up in the air, as well as the building way up in the air, and it's all retaining wall, and it's a lot of fill. So I think this site really requires, from an economical standpoint, a two-story solution. So I went, if you look at S102A, you'll see parking in the front and back of an abbreviated, smaller footprint of building because it's a two-story scheme. Public entry is separate from staff entry in this layout. We have approximately the same number of parking spaces in all of these schemes, 9 for the public and between 24 and 25 for staff. That's what we were looking at the last time we designed this for the Rogers Mayer property, so I stuck those numbers. If they can be reduced in the staff side or the public side, we can save money on the pavement, but for the moment I was using the same thing we did before. And with this scheme, as we go to the back of the site, we drop the grade down for parking, and you're basically tucking the building into the hill. So the back side is 2 stories, but the street side is 1 story.
So where would like snow storage be on this one here? Like, would you push it to the back where it falls off down here?
Most likely, yes. And as I mentioned, I do have a larger plan that shows the regrading, but there isn't any need for a site retaining wall. We can use the building foundation to do that for us. It's literally a walkout scenario with the lowest part of the building being the 3-bay Sally Port drive-in, as well as that little bump out in the back, which is the exit stair. So we'll have a sidewalk from that exit stair to the parking lot. But other than that, grade starts to climb from the back of the building up to the front on both short sides of the building. So we're not fighting topography with this 2-story scheme.
Lot 6, there were no wetlands we had to be concerned with, correct?
That is correct. There was just a smidgen of a setback, but it's so far in the back of the site as to be inconsequential for us. And that I noted on our on the list of pros and cons. So if you are okay with the details of the floor plans, then we could look at the pros and cons that I've listed. Perhaps some of you may have additional ones to add. Lot 15-6, as we noted earlier, there's no site acquisition cost associated with it. You already own it. There was no ledge found during the preliminary soils investigation. The things that are common to both sites as far as the soils are concerned, I didn't bother to list them as pros or cons. For instance, the bearing capacity of the soil is roughly the same at both sites. It's 4,000 pounds per square foot, which is fine for spread footings. There was no groundwater found at either location that would impact our foundation design. So really the differences were the soil, the bedrock. Another pro for lot 15-6 is the staff and Sallyport entries are well hidden from the public view. Ideally, you like to do that so that when things happen with people that you've got detainees from the cruiser coming and going from the building, the fact that the public can't see that tends to be a good thing. Another pro would be a more compact building shape. As I mentioned, that translates to smaller heating and cooling costs down the road because it's a more compact shape. And in this particular case, because it's a walkout, you have 50% of your lower level tucked into the earth, so there's even less of a heating and cooling load on that exterior wall of the building. And it has more basement storage than the 1-story scheme. Part of the reason why it's a larger footprint is because we wanted to unify the top and bottom floor plans to be the same and get some bonus storage space out of that. The cons, it's a less desirable location for visibility to the public. It's harder to locate. You have to drive further up the road from where you're coming, presumably, to find the police station. It's a smaller site, so it offers less flexibility for building and parking layout. As I mentioned, I had to go to a 2-story scheme in order to make the layout work economically. Due to the sloping grade, the building needs to be 2 stories, so it'll have a larger floor area footprint, and it will be likely a little bit more cost to build it initially. The public parking area is within the setback on this site. There was just no other way to do it unless you want to continue to push the building down the hill. But I don't think that's an issue. The town, I think, could do that without much problem. You'll likely need to remove soil from this site due to the parking and the building excavation. So I believe, I haven't done a quantity takeoff, but I believe there'll be a surplus of soil. That may not be a con if the town needs the soil somewhere else and the Bureau of Public Works can truck it there, then it won't necessarily be a con. If you have to pay to remove it from the site, then it is. And the carport in scheme, in the two-story scheme, would end up being a standalone structure. There's no easy way to tack it to the building like there was with the other scheme. Lot 15, the pros, the site is larger, so it offers more flexibility for the building and parking lot layouts. As you saw, we can get 2 separate entries if we want to, or we can go with one. And there's more room to expand the building in the future. The site location is very prominent at the intersection of 2 major roads, so the public has an easier time finding your building. The building can be designed as 1 story, so it's a smaller floor area, a couple of thousand square feet less than the 2-story scheme overall. Less initial cost to build, but the flip side would be heating the building. And there's an option available for a completely separate staff and Sallyport entry from Sanborn Road. The cons are site acquisition cost. You don't own the site right now. The ledge that was found at 4 to 5 feet below grade, but as I mentioned, I'm less concerned about that because I think we can get adequate frost coverage, and as long as we're talking a slab on grade with a 1-story building, it doesn't impact you. It's likely going to cost more to heat and cool because the surface area of the building is bigger, and the site, as we mentioned, contains some wetlands, although they haven't really impacted the layout as I've shown it. With the exception of if we get a separate staff Sallyport entrance, we'll have to culvert that ditch, so we need a permit to do that, I would think, because it's wetlands area right there. I don't imagine it would be.
Where you've designated the wetlands on these, are you including the 20-foot buffer?
Yes, that's why it's as wide as it's shown. And again, I took a PDF from that study that was done, and I blew it up, put it in CAD, and I traced over it. I wanted to lay it down on this. Those little crosses are the setback for the wetlands. And there's also a utility setback right of way, and that's the hatched pattern that you see, that boomerang shape. Lower right-hand corner of the site. So we're within all of those setbacks, even the building setback. The only thing we're crossing is obviously the access road that goes from the parking to Business Park Drive.
We thought this was going to be sewer or something, and it's utility.
I think it's a utility. I think it's Telcom.
Oh,
I could be wrong.
On our
Telcom.
town records, it shows sewer.
Sewer doesn't go.
Hasn't made it there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
It's
it's
between the 2 lots. And you can see it in the middle of the
I was
road.
at-
So it goes
telephone.
across this whole thing?
Yeah, that boomerang shape. Yep, it's an easement. And again, I can't vouch for the accuracy of these. I took them from small PDFs, so I think whichever site you ultimately decide you want to build on, I think we need to get a survey done that accurately locates these, because they'll be important for us to know.
Can I ask questions now?
Go ahead, Kevin. I'm okay with that. Does anybody object to Kevin
I'm
answering?
fine with it.
I'm Kevin, by the way. I think we met probably in a different life and thing. But, lot line adjustments. Any chance of lot line adjustments because of lot sizes? And when I say that in reference to fitting in the easements, I don't know if there's a problem with the electric utility compacting on that side. We do a lot line adjustment in the rear. This is kind of globally thinking on either.
That would be with Casey.
That would be expensive.
Are you talking about buying more land?
Yeah, lot line adjustments, whether it's working some type of an agreement with whoever the owners are.
Right.
So I guess the way I think of that is the beauty of having a lot that we currently own, could the lots be shifted, especially if it's a Casey Nickerson owned lot, can those lots be shifted? What would the cost be? If it's, astronomical, just, that's fine, no problem. But,
I guess that would be a question for both the town and the current owner of the lot.
Currently, what we understand is the value of our lot is much less than the value placed on the corner.
oh, no doubt, I'm sure it is.
There's about, roughly, around about $140,000, $150,000 difference.
Okay, yeah, that's, okay. Next question is, as far as the lot line, the butter on the block we currently own, do we own any, does that abut Home Depot property, or does it go that deep at all in the rear?
Well, I don't know who
Home Depot,
owns
no.
the property at the rear of the site.
It doesn't go to the Home Depot property. 51 Business Park Drive.
Here, they have
Oh, okay,
Business
awesome.
Park, yes. The current building that now Sea Light now occupies, there was an access road
That abutted
that abutted
Home
that
Depot.
property, but when we sold that to Sea Light, there went
that agreement,
that
right.
emergency exit. if you
Yeah,
will.
that's where
what
I
you
was
were-
going.
yeah.
I remember that.
You can't go up that exit
They were going
through
to
the
allow us
99
to
you're
use
talking
that.
about.
But
Yeah.
this property,
Yeah, no,
there's wetlands behind it. And
that's
it's-
really out of the
It's essentially
And
behind the
it's like
tanker.
this.
I would imagine.
Okay, I'm good with that. I know, I remembered a discussion about rear exits, so kind of you could use the patrol cars, they could enter staff parking from the Home Depot emergency access road.
That's close to us now.
Yeah, okay.
Good question, though.
Move on from that question though. That's it for now.
Were there any calculations done on this one for impervious surface coverage?
Matter of fact, I have,
Which one, John? What does it say on the end?
the amount of, are you talking about the amount of parking paved?
That looks like.
Well,
yeah.
and building.
Well, the building footprint.
102?
Is that the?
102A,
okay,
I
that's-
think.
Let's.
102A.
Take a look at Scheme C. Each footprint is 6,730 square feet, so 6,730 square feet for the building on Lot 6. And the pavement is 19,810 square feet.
19,000?
810. That's the total area of pavement front and back. And then if you go to the other site with the scheme that has only one entrance to the site off of Business Park Drive, that building footprint is 11,415 square feet and 20,000 square feet of pavement. So they're virtually identical. There's only 100 some odd square feet difference between the two paved areas. And it's roughly 2,000 square feet more. Well, footprint-wise, it's 5,000 square feet more with the lot 15 because it's all on one level. Does that answer your
Right.
question?
Well, we can only have so much lot coverage with impervious surfaces, so that's what I'm trying to figure out. But I'm looking at this one, which is the 102, and you
Yeah,
said it
that's
was...
the one that I decided wasn't going to be feasible. That's the one that has a one-story scheme on lot 6.
Okay.
I probably should have brought
The
that.
other
I didn't
one
want to
comes-
confuse you, but I did want you to see that
See
I
what it
did
would look like.
pursue it and decided it really wasn't worth pursuing.
So 102A comes out to be 26,510 square feet of impervious surface, and I don't know what the lot size is.
I don't know how
Square
many
feet.
is it.
It's about a little over 1.5 acres, but you have to,
1.6,
don't
I
you have
think
to
it is.
subtract wetlands and everything first before you do that calculation?
No, it's
The lot size.
No, it's the total lot size.
Yeah, it's the total lot size, okay.
Yeah, there's very little wetlands on lot 6.
So, yeah, I don't know how
It's,
A little more check into that, we'd have to,
That may have something to say about how big the parking lot is.
So John,
or
a
the,
little over 65,000 square feet if it's around an acre and a half. I got 65,340. What was your? Do you have the total for the
I have
land?
26,510 with land and buildings. I mean, with parking and
26,510
building.
divided by
77.
A little bit more than a third coverage.
40.
The town doesn't have to abide by the zoning ordinances if it's in best interest of the taxpayers, why would you? And
So it's,
I think if it's close, I mean, why would you? Behind it, you have a substantial number of wetlands between us and Tanger, so it's not as though somebody would develop all of those lands, even though it's not part of the lot. You still have all those impervious surfaces that would remain so
But one of the things
perpetuity.
is controlling the amount of runoff that comes off of the site.
Well,
Where
that's
it's gonna go.
something that
I
the
think we're
committee
gonna have
will need to
contain a lot of
address.
that on site.
Yeah, the committee will have to address those things, the runoff, and at least I hope they
If
will.
we're going to be choosing a site and there is additional cost for containing the runoff, we want to make sure that we keep that in mind.
But you'd have to contain the runoff on both sides. The corner site has wetlands all around it.
And there's a lot more room to put containment of runoff or to have runoff that was then.
But you could, for instance, create depressions in the landscaped areas to hold the water as opposed to on a smaller site. Well, what we sometimes have to do is
Put it back under.
put the containers underneath the parking. And that's where the water ends up and perks down. And
That's
it
more
tends to be
expensive.
more expensive than just carving out a dish or a bowl in the landscape that holds the
Aren't
water.
we really a long ways from just having the dish or the bowl? I mean, what UNH has come forward with for treating stormwater runoff is amazing. It's way beyond the normal planning board's practice.
And I haven't done that.
But I think that's something that the,
It could be a substantial cost and that we should be looking at to, how,
I just
how much
don't
it costs to
know.
control the runoff.
Right.
And that it's a driving factor for picking lot sizes too.
you're gonna have to control the runoff of both. If you're gonna really consider the environment, you're not gonna want runoff, storm runoff from the parking lot to just go into,
I don't think we're going to be allowed to anyway. The DOT is going to make us, the DES is going to make us keep it.
Keep it on site.
That's been my experience.
I think it's going to be very difficult for us to be able to pick a site, which site. Once we do that, it's going to be downhill from there. The tough part's going to be saying, here's the site, let's go with that, and let's bring that to town meeting, because they're so close in pros and cons.
I don't think
It
they're that
ends up-
close. Going on the corner lot, that's over $100,000 just to purchase it.
Yeah, and the committees before, this committee, we were looking at $750,000 to purchase a piece of land.
And they all failed. This one we want to succeed.
I know, I get it.
I think the big picture, because we don't right now have the funds to do that study and we don't have enough data to do that study. I think big picture, we could probably say that the amount of runoff that needs to be held back would be less expensive to do on the larger lot. Because we wouldn't need to put those containers underneath the pavement.
So once, you know,
That's just big picture talk.
Yeah.
if we go with lot 6 and we go with the 2-story, it's a little bit more expensive to build the 2-story.
But it's less expensive to heat over the years.
Over the years, it's less expensive, so it's really less expensive to build a 1-story on a lot. I mean, you could go,
So is it gonna be
Argument is
$100,000 extra to build this 2-story building, do you think? I don't
It's
think so.
2,000 square feet bigger. Let's just guess $250 a square foot. And that's really just a guess.
So the answer's no.
Whatever that turns out to be from a math standpoint.
and what's the square footage on the lot 6 one?
I was just talking about the delta between the two, Pat, in order to know. I think the question was, is the two-story scheme, how much more expensive than the one-story scheme? So I took the 2,000 square feet,
Difference.
that it is bigger, multiplied it by $250.
And then you have the impervious surface that you want to change, so one has more
And that
than
I
the
don't
other.
have any accurate information to give you on the price of that. I can only take an educated guess that it'll be cheaper to hold the water on the bigger site, because I think you can do it with landscaping as opposed to buying those retaining structures that you have to put underneath the cover.
Kevin, you had a question?
What's the value of this building?
Signs are cheap.
Sorry?
Signs are cheap.
If
That's
you,
just
No,
that's just my opinion.
No, that's what I'm asking, that's your
right,
opinion.
if you base it upon the last few town meetings where they defeated the vote, the building, one of the objections to 61 Business Park Drive was the visibility. That was one of the high objections. I know,
But
right?
61 Business Park Drive was the only one that passed. It was rescinded. It was rescinded, but not because of location. Not because of location.
Well, yeah, the location was really key to
That's
that.
not
It was
why it was
visibility.
rescinded.
So,
No, it wasn't why it was rescinded. You're absolutely correct on that.
But you have to remember that even though it's further down, it's next to this one.
kind of a
It was approved.
piggyback question to that question is, do we have a time frame of how long what are we talking about for a 30-year building or 50-year?
But we haven't talked about what it's constructed of yet, which we have a say about it. In other words, if you were to build it predominantly out of masonry block, probably last longer than if you're talking about studs and sheetrock. We haven't had those conversations yet.
Are you talking about as far as size of our department fitting in the building? Or the longevity of the structure, just
In
standalone?
my mind, that question is the number one question, is how long do you want to be in that building? The building you're sitting in right now, if this building was wood frame with a truss roof and lightweight construction, in my mind, it's a 30-year building. How long have you been in it? It's a long time. So how long do we want to protect our investment? How long do you want to amortize it out? So if we're talking about a bigger number, am I making sense to you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if we're talking about amortizing this out over a 50-year time period, I think the questions get easier on which lot we pay. Because are we willing to spend a little bit more money on a bigger lot that will allow us some breathing room? I can swallow that as a taxpayer if it's amortized over a longer period of time. So I think all those questions in my mind are connected. And I just thought of this building this morning. I'm a mortar guy, brick and mortar, just because I think it will last longer, and I think we'll set the community up for success. Instead of building a lightweight constructed building that lasts 30 years, you're in one now. That's a temporary building that we've been in for 25 years. That we outgrew in year 5. You know, I hope we don't repeat that. I hope that our children and our grandchildren are not having the same conversation in 30 years. That I'd rather spend more money on the front side, on one taxpayer. That's the issue. I understand the politics that goes along with it. I think if we can answer the question of how long are we expecting to be in this building, we can answer the other questions of which lot do we want, what type of construction do we want. If that helps.
Well, we need to move forward. And it doesn't sound like this board's ready to choose a site tonight. So, we need to decide, are we going to just turn this over to a committee, let them decide, let them go forward? Or is the Board of Selectmen still going to decide the law?
I'd like to let the committee decide.
I'm happy to make another presentation to the committee if you think that will help.
What do you think that the site should be? Your professional opinion.
I tend to agree with Kevin that it's a municipal building, should have a certain longevity to it, a certain stature in the community. And I always advocate for maintaining flexibility. And the larger lot just gives you more opportunities down the road to expand, to do different things with your parking layouts. Let's say you decided as a community that you wanted to start holding certain types of evidence in a screened area, a fenced area. I'm really hard pressed to do that on Lot 6. But you can do that on this site. I've done police stations where that was important to them. Because
We have that now.
they'd impound cars and they'd do a forensic analysis on it, with the fingerprinting and everything else if the vehicle was in an accident. If some municipalities are small enough where they have to ship that out, it's got to be done somewhere else. Those types of things, if you have the opportunity, a bigger lot gives you that flexibility. And everybody's got to make that value judgment as to whether or not the 100-some-odd thousand is worth that.
But the other thing is, it is a bigger lot. You're not going to put a structure on the right of way in the front, and you're not going to build in the front because of the drop off.
Yeah, what it
You've
does
got
is it
the-
gives you the
you've got the
Sanborn
Eversource.
Road side.
Yeah, you only have that western side.
So you're saying no room to grow, really? Is that what
Well,
you're-
the room
You-
to grow is minimal, but there
Right.
certainly is more than the other lot.
And you would also be able to build it now in anticipation if ever needed a second floor. If ever needed.
But your other lot has a basement, which is more square footage than.
Which is a plus, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, the
It is.
pros and cons, I tried to be as
Both
objective
buildings
as I
are-
could.
Both sites are, unless we knew the cost.
So, what do we want to do?
I don't know, that's why I threw that out there to the board. I just think we need to move. Joyce?
Just because I heard back from all the people that we had expressed interest to serve on the committee, and their question is, oh, okay, well, what is the committee going to do? And I said, well, the selectmen are meeting tonight, and they said the next step is we need to schedule an organizational meeting, but I couldn't tell them what they were going to be asked to do.
No, that's coming out of this meeting.
That's what I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
so what are they going to be asked to do?
We don't know yet. We have to
Or
answer
are you
the,
going to talk about that tonight?
we have to answer the question, is the Board of Selectmen still gonna hold on to choosing the site? Or are we just gonna turn all of this over to the committee and let them go forward, which I'm inclined to do because we're running out of time.
I think if we turn it over to the committee, they're going to be the ones making that decision, interviewing the officers, doing the majority of the research as to what we really need.
Well, I think
And
that's
they're
already been
ultimately
done.
presenting.
I quite frankly hope they don't do that. I think that's already done, which is where these
No, I
designs,
think it's like an
these
ongoing.
designs came from.
It's an ongoing process.
And they're gonna run out of time.
I think,
We need to get down, the committee really needs to get down to the nitty gritty and work with Gary, come up with the design, which is what we promised at town meeting, a design and a cost, so that they can make a sound decision on this building, on this site, and this
Exactly.
is how much it's gonna cost, and if it is lot 15, this is how much this property is gonna sell for on this one, boom, and this is, it's gonna offset whatever. All that's gonna come into on town meeting, and we have to bring that all into one big little presentation. And we have to have it ready for a warrant article by February 5th, 2nd, 5th, whatever, for the committee, but our details all have to be done by March town meeting.
So first question, Board of Selectmen consensus, please. Do we turn this over to the committee, all of it? Let them choose the site. The committee is a Selectmen's committee, so however often the board decides they're gonna be reporting to us. But should we just give this to them and let them have at it?
Yes?
I agree. Pat?
As long as, yes, I am, as long as we all can
Yes.
live with it.
Peter?
Get her done.
Okay, so with that, then, Joyce, go ahead.
Well, whatever the committee decides, based upon our contract with Gary, you're assuming that there will be one site.
Correct.
So, unless you wanted to amend his contract, but I don't think we have time to do that. So, ultimately what comes out of this group consensus is that there will be one site, and then we'll know which design is going to be used.
That's correct.
And then you send it to the estimator, or you do your 3D.
Yeah, I still have some work to do before we can get a cost estimate to it. As Kevin just alluded to, how long do we want this building to last? And that's going to have something to say about what we constructed out of.
Right, exactly.
And there's a couple other things that we need to get answers to, information on the easement for the one.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
And the deposit.
Pat, you had a pretty good rundown of what you felt the committee should be doing. Can we all input on what we want this committee to do, besides design us a police station, have the prices to go to town meeting? How often should they meet a month? Twice at least?
So they have to make a decision before the end of this month, definitely maybe by the middle of this month.
This October?
Yeah,
Okay.
this being October.
October.
yeah.
I was gonna say, I guess I fell asleep or something.
You gotta vote.
No, I mean, when I sent the schedule
So-
out to
So
find
by the
out-
end of October, to make sure that we have a site,
Site.
hopefully the organization getting to know everyone, not
Yeah, I
everyone
would-
gets.
Right,
Erin,
well,
how
I-
long do you think it would take that committee with the input that you need to gather for them to pick a site? 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
I would
Really a
hope
whole
they could
month?
do it within 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the most.
All right.
It depends on how often they're available, because, if we had to meet twice a week to meet a deadline, I'm available as long as I know with a few days' notice.
And everyone that I spoke to said they are all available in the evenings, except one has a prior commitment on Wednesday night, and then where we go.
How many people?
We have six.
So instead of
And
saying
a
maybe,
selectman is 7, right? Or did you include the selectmen?
I'm just
So
feeling-
6 people.
6 citizens.
So 7.
6, so
So we're
7
great.
on the committee, right?
Is somebody in this room going to be on our committee? That's not sitting at the table besides Gail?
Yes.
Well, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, he volunteered. Yeah.
Thank you.
I left work early.
Thank you.
I
was hoping.
I
I have
didn't
some
know you'd expressed
ideas
interest,
if
so,
you want
and
to
then I
walk
did
on
talk with Chuck today.
Thank you.
All right, so
I
do
did-
we really need to have instructions for this committee? I think it's pretty well spelled out.
I think Kevin's
you're
got
pretty
it
well
outlined
the leader. I
well.
think
we needed to,
and I-
October 15th.
we haven't officially appointed a selectman
No, we
representative.
have not.
Is there
You got a pretty good idea.
anyone that wants to be on this committee? Yeah, I know.
I can't.
I know. Yeah, so does
Multiple
any,
votes.
Pat gets 2 votes.
I don't see any objection to that. So can we just,
Be my last word.
A suggestion on timeframes is maybe we set some benchmarks of just a check-in point, because I think there are some questions that need to be answered by the Board of Selectmen, meaning the temperature of politics and all of the previous committees. Those are all going to come into play, and I don't think that, in my mind, this board knows current politics and past politics as far as the temperature goes. So the committee could take this a direction, and you might say, I don't know if I would go down that road, because that would slow us down.
I think,
I just said to the chief the other day, strategy is everything in this. We want to set this up for success the first time.
in the past, that's like Riverfront Park, and I was on that committee. It was successful because the committee engaged the public as much as possible. I mean, as much as possible. We sent out flyers, what do you want for a playground, I mean, that's why Riverfront Park has brick, concrete, and dirt sidewalks, because that's what the public wanted. But the other thing, and I think that example was shown to us at the fire district meeting last year, most people today are voting with their pocketbooks. So if we can, I don't think there's a doubt in town that we need a police station.
And a lot of the past naysayers are really for the police station
I
right
think
now.
they recognize that.
They really recognize the need.
It's gonna be dollars, I think.
Yep.
But
is gonna
in
come
the
down
other
to that.
side of that, it's not just dollars, but that it is shown to the public that there is a lot of study, a lot of time, and a lot of effort, and truly this is, the proposal that's presented at town meeting, the best possible scenario. If you can get, invite the public to, and we need to get it out there, not just putting up posters, but we really need to get the public, let them know that these meetings.
Town website, you could put the information on this.
Absolutely. So we need to be as transparent as possible.
Do you think that if we call these, whether they're workshops, I'm hoping that everyone comes with sleeves rolled up, that they're public meetings, correct?
Yes.
Is at the end of each one of these workshops that we allow public comment for no longer than 3 minutes. We have to hold them to that, because then we can hear that, so we don't hear it at the town meeting.
Right.
When one of the naysayers comes to the workshop, and they've had every opportunity to speak up, so when they show up at the town meeting and say something that we haven't heard yet, they need to be called on card.
I think part of the, I think also part of the town meeting, didn't we say that there would be a public hearing? In the,
Yeah. That
we
Gary
did,
would go.
And that we would, and
right.
Gary's gonna be
So
at
we
the
have to have at least one
public hearing at the town meeting.
I would have as many as possible, and your idea is
Right.
fabulous.
Yeah, we want to hear your word.
Right.
And
Yeah.
let them talk.
Yep.
And we need to get the word out there to get them to come.
That's what gets you buy-in.
That's exactly what
You gotta get ownership.
Yeah.
I mean, they recognize the need. Okay, so,
Another question, so we need to formally appoint these people, so I can send letters, tell them what date will be the organizational meeting. So are all the selectmen gonna come to that, and also who wants to take them out and get them to go see the site, because all of this will be more helpful to them if they can all go out and look.
well, so,
I just bring this up because I'm trying to move things.
I mean, I'm not gonna turn away personally any volunteer that volunteers. I mean, it's great. I think it's wonderful. We have a committee of
Give us the
7.
list and we'll motion.
So,
Give us a list and we'll.
And then
So
we'll motion.
we can tell them, email them the location of the sites, give them, I would send them a couple of the stuff that Gary's brought to us tonight, so they can get an idea of how it's set on the site. And they can go out whenever they want to look at the sites.
And they said any day.
But Wednesday night, it's at night.
So
it's
let
equal-
them figure that
Let's
out.
start the first meeting on October 9th.
How about we let them?
That's Columbus Day.
Was that a Monday?
Monday. Are you okay with that?
It's Columbus Day.
Is town
Didn't we
hall
just say
open?
mid-October?
Could we start
Not
the week
Tuesday night,
before?
Thursday night.
Like
That's
ASAP?
this
If people can start next week, why not next week? Let's
October 2nd?
This week
Let's-
coming up.
Oh, this is
discuss a deadline for when we want a site picked and let them decide when they'll meet.
We have to have a first organizational first one.
Should be before October 9th.
Yeah, I would guess sometime next week, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, something like
Not
that.
Thursday,
Are
because
you
Thursday
every
we're here.
Tuesday?
They can be done,
Yeah.
you're on committee, they can do Thursday.
Next Monday is.
Tuesday, there's a meeting.
Okay, how about Tuesday the
Second.
3rd?
There's a
And as
meeting
part of that,
Tuesday's not a good night.
if they can go out to the site on their own or have them go out to the site, I'm just wondering, I think it's important that you're there at the first meeting to explain all this.
Sure.
Gary, can you flag the site, you know, like ribbons?
Well, there's already markings on the pavement. There's white L-shaped markings with arrows, and it says JTC. That was John Turner Consulting. They're the ones that did the soil borings. So both sites have almost like brackets, if you will, right on the street. So it'll at least tell them when they're moving into the site how far
Is there a corner end?
There's some flags out there, there's.
Right, we can
This is-
see the boundaries, if that's what you're
It's-
saying.
it's
You can
pretty
see
well,
where they did the
especially
borings and.
Right.
Certainly the corner lot is easy to find.
The other one, because you've got the boundaries.
So October
See, like,
2nd?
that's pretty obvious.
October 3rd, you said?
What day of the week is that?
Tuesday. First Tuesday.
We'll have to meet downstairs.
Why?
So yes.
First Tuesday.
Nothing.
But if they're gonna meet Tuesday, so we're gonna get them started on Tuesday, they may not choose Tuesday night, right?
That's correct.
So you know all that, you can go with the calendar.
So Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Told me Monday.
Well,
Wednesday,
yeah, Tuesday, I'm looking at my calendar.
Oh, Monday and
Yeah.
Tuesday, I'm sorry,
I'm working.
Wednesday the 4th.
Wednesday the 4th?
Somebody else says Wednesday.
Yeah.
Right.
It's Chuck.
Well, it's not gonna be every
It's a
Wednesday,
heavy
it's just to set it up and then we'll pick.
Wednesday the 4th.
He can go too.
All right, Wednesday the 4th.
We'll just talk for him.
I know.
Okay, so
Let's
it's
go
gonna
to
be, this is
Wednesday.
it's gonna be an organizational meeting. This is the committee members, you're officially appointed.
Yeah.
If they get a chance to go out to the site, I'll send me that electronically. I can send it out to the members.
The information that you have here?
Yep. If they have an opportunity before Wednesday, I'll be happy to skip out and meet them, just to show them where the sites are.
Right.
I'm saying no day.
I'm off Friday and Mondays. Can I get that to you Tuesday? If not, I can hand you these and maybe you
And then
could
I can
scan them.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I write on everything I have.
Yep.
Okay. And what time? I mean, I'll confirm the time, but
I can be here at 5 o'clock if that works for everybody else.
some people work, so.
Yeah, I mean, that 5 would pretty safely be okay for me.
I mean, if it has to be 6.
I mean, 5 is good.
Whatever works.
Usually about 4:45 is when I,
Depends how long Eric talks to you at Southwood.
And then we'll have to meet downstairs.
so 5 okay with you?
Yeah, and so I'll say a brief presentation by Gary. And so
Yeah.
only one selectman's going to be there? Or you're all gonna be there?
Yeah, well, whoever wants to join us, I mean, it's not, and then are we gonna tape this? Do you want this taped?
Well, I would tape them. Nothing secretive. Everything taped. That's what Lot 61 Business Park Drive.
And between now and then, between Tim and I, we can just do a quick timeline of what's happened in the past.
If we can get all their applications for that night ready, prepared,
I can swear on it.
well, the Board of Selectmen have to officially sign it before they get sworn in.
Oh, you want to do it?
We need to
Oh,
do
we'll
it. We
have
need
a-
to do it right, but they're
Yeah.
gonna meet, we are gonna meet the next night.
We can
Yeah.
meet the rest,
So, and then the
right,
next meeting, pack and swear 'em in.
right.
Want to what?
I'll make your crown.
I can put a little gold sticker
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
on your letter, okay, with the town seal. Will that?
Same.
All right, so that's the plan.
No guns.
Oh, this is excellent.
And Chief, you'll be there?
The other, before I forget, the other, the bringing utilities to that. There's water and sewer part up there, physical.
No. Casey has to bring sewer down.
Who's gonna bring it?
It's that's part of his,
It's part of the deal.
yeah.
Part of the deal?
He was supposed to have done it years ago. He came to sewer asking to wait until lots sell, and we gave him that break. So he should be well aware that if the corner lot sells, he's gonna have to bring the line down a couple more manholes.
Is there gas up there too?
There's gas up to sea light, yeah, in this water.
So, here's the only one thing. The committee needs to choose the site as soon as possible. So if they choose the one we don't own, then the selectmen are gonna have to play let's make a deal.
Yes.
Because the committee can't get into any kind of contractual agreement, only the selectmen can.
Right.
All right, sounds like a deal.
Possible action.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good. You make it to your meeting.
I will. I got 6 minutes to get to my car.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much for coming, and all the work. It's excellent.
It sounds more promising than it has in a while.
Moving right along.
We may have this one, Gary.
I think we have
Like
some.
Pete said, dinner going.
I sure hope so.
Chief's gonna take you out for drinks after, once we get it.
Maybe.
A few.
I heard, yeah.
Was
What's
that a
that?
conflict of interest?
Conflict of
Everything's
interest?
all said and
No, when
done.
everything's all said and done.
All right.
I don't drink, so I would take you out if you wanted to.
Captain, wasn't it stickers that got the park through? Said start the park? Sticker?
Oh.
Sticker? So if we make up stickers
Whether
that say
If you had a
Well-
private jet, you could.
There were so many things that we did that engaged the public.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, we even tried to do a buy a brick thing,
Go to work and do
and then we had the names on
Night, Carrie.
the names are on the wall. Good night.
Night.
So there was a lot of things. But
Think
people
about
felt
that
ownership.
nice plaque, bronze plaque we're gonna have on the
It's a
building.
lesson.
You remember what this is where it
I always do that.
and how that felt.
Yeah, you and I went on to that committee together.
Yeah, we were there that day. All right,
All right.
we're right on time. PD
Time
dispatch.
is, Nate.
He's here.
Oh, he is here, he snuck in.
Detectives, they get in quietly.
Get away from Ashley.
Is there copies of the amounts? Or is it just an
Did you
email?
print them out, Tim?
it. I did.
Right here.
Oh,
Everybody should, everybody have one?
Right there.
here we go. You know.
That's the budget. Where's the dispatch?
I think he's passing it around right now.
I made copies of it.
Got it.
Yeah, that's all.
I was given a bunch of stuff this morning.
Oh, the same stuff.
I just didn't look at it. Okay,
Yeah, so whatever you have, I might ask you.
go ahead.
I brought my
Go ahead.
own, you can do that.
I think there's a bunch of questions that we'll have, but I think that it would benefit this committee if the Board of Selectmen came up with a pencil list of your own political areas. Just over the years, what have been some of the political areas? Because that's one thing that the committee will probably not, hopefully not need to consider.
I think there is one person in this room has experienced probably at least 90% of those. That would be our chief.
Okay.
I was on the earlier ones,
No, we can
predated
talk
that.
offline, that's fine. I just
But
think
no, I'm
that's
sure
one of the
that-
things that-
Yeah,
that amount right
if we include him in that, that's what I'm saying, so the six of us could, everybody agree? Good idea?
Excellent.
All right, thank you for that.
Renee.
All right,
Thank you, Kevin.
hot seat,
All right, you ready? Talk
Roll.
about dispatch again.
let him roll.
So we're back here for dispatch. I think when we initially came to the board, our initial thought was a 16-hour dispatch. We laid out the reasons. I know we've talked about it each and every meeting. I think we kind of made a universal decision. We were going to explore a 24-hour option, which we did. And here we are. I think after all of our discussions, all the options, looking at everything, weighing in on the costs, what is going to be the most effective for us. I think we as an agency have come to kind of ask the board to approve a 16-hour dispatch as opposed to 24. I think we hold off on the 24-hour dispatch, reevaluate it at a future date. I know Tim has put in all the numbers. As part of this 16 hours, the bare minimum we would need for 16 hours is an additional full-time dispatcher and a 32-hour-a-week position. Our request is to make that 32-hour-a-week position a full-time position, and it's for a few reasons. Number one, it's going to add a tremendous amount of flexibility for us. It's going to give us the ability to have one shift a week where there's an overlap of dispatchers. It can be used for the data entry for that midnight shift where we're going to be on Belknap. They'll be able to enter those calls. They're going to be able to train, fill in if somebody calls in. We're going to be able to use it for a wide variety of things, whether it's helping prosecution, paperwork filing, whatever we see fit for that. So that's one shift a week. Currently, I don't think we have anybody that would take that 32-hour-a-week position after all the interviews that we've done. But we do have 2 full-time dispatchers that are trained, certified, and have a lot of experience. So I think we come as an agency to ask the board to really make the motion to go with the 16-hour, 2 full-time dispatch position.
Which is the scenario
Scenario 3.
3.
Yeah, I think they passed out yet.
So Tim sent us a-
I believe
No,
it is.
well, he was handing out it, I kept
I
it.
guess you sent it to us, or it's, I think it's same one. We've discussed this over and over and over again. Everyone knows the way that I feel. I think that for security and safety, for the replication of data entry, for the inability to download from Belknap County, and having to be redundant and pay offices at $29 and $30 an hour to do data entry. In the long run, it'll be more beneficial to us. So I will make a motion that we go to 16-7 dispatch with 2 full-time, adding 2 full-time dispatchers at $18.75 an hour, with the understanding that they fall under the contract, the current contract, which ultimately would be rotational by seniority.
Do we want to put the salary in the motion, because we don't know who we're hiring?
I think we can. I think we've looked at it, we would agree on those numbers, because that is part of the union contract, those numbers.
They're both working now as dispatchers.
I don't want to go higher than that.
No, but I just don't want to, I don't want to be stuck into anything. I'd rather just leave it open.
I see what you're saying.
If they got stuck, they'd come back to unstuck them.
Did I hear a second to that motion?
Yeah, second.
All right, discussion, please.
Another advantage of the 16-7 is if they're not having to come in to retype their reports from midnight, you'll see them out on the street more, and visibility is probably the best protection for the citizens.
What would the 16-hour look like?
The schedule?
Like, yeah, is it another Monday through Friday?
No,
or-
so I think, in order to do it fair, you try to get the best schedule, and nobody's ever happy when you do a schedule. There's always somebody that's less happy. So what we've looked at, we've made a lot of schedules. Right now, that day shift would be probably a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is the day shift, which is either 7 to 3 or 8 to 4. That's undecided yet. The evening shift is either 3 to 11 or 8 or 4 to midnight. And that days off are like Wednesday, Thursday, and then you have your cover shift is that third dispatcher. So one day a week will have an overlap, and that we have a lot of say is that a Sunday, in order to enter all the calls from the weekend, from the midnight, that they can do that data entry. Is that on a Monday to help prosecution and have that? So we do have a lot of leeway in that. But yeah, I think it's going to be split up because everybody's going to want the opportunity to have a weekend off schedule eventually as they rotate through.
And I do want to make people happy, but most importantly, the town.
Right.
So I want to attract people to the position that are going to want to work the hours that we need them the most.
Correct.
So weekends, holidays if need be,
Right.
whatever our busiest hours
So
are.
this would be a 7-day-a-week schedule, so there's 16 hours every day of the week. So, the 3 people are the people that we would need to do that schedule.
So you're looking at a total cost of over $220,000.
That's a 24/7.
That's,
No. Right now, our current dispatcher costs us about $70-some-odd thousand. You're talking about adding 3.
no, we're adding 2.
Having 2.
I mean, having 2. So it's a total cost of over $200,000.
In dispatch, in general,
If you would-
including...
Are you including?
Including the
I'm
day,
including the current.
the current.
Okay.
Yeah. then
Including
if
the
you're-
current, the total cost is about let's just call it $200,000, it's 210 what I put in there, but the total cost is $200,000.
Sometimes you have to pay to provide service. Most of our residents, I don't think, can stop by the PD from 8 to 4 because they have JOBs. This allows them to get there at their leisure, or
Yes,
the
but
weekend for that matter.
Changing the day schedule would do that. All you'd have to do is make it start at 9 to 5.
And if I work out of town or whatever, I can't make it, and it's not open on the weekends.
Going to work late. It's just the hit to the taxpayer that bothers me. It just truly does.
So I think you guys we've had these positions in the past, right? And then somebody left.
No,
We weren't at 16 hours before?
No,
no.
never.
What were we at before when we had
Eight.
another?
Four,
We-
4
we've
o'clock, it went to
always
Belknap.
Locked the door at 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock it locked.
And all day on Saturday, all day on Sunday.
They don't start
And
until
a lot of
5.
people. So right now, if it's after 4 or on a weekend, a Saturday, someone has to come and press that metal box. They're talking to a dispatcher in Laconia for whatever the reason is, and then an officer has to come in. So if you add the amount of times they have to come in and the amount of re-entry of data they have to do it, they just never get a chance to go out and do what they should be doing, which is patrolling and deterring crime. And so I think that's their frustration.
I agree.
With the numbers, I'm looking at, we're not calculating in vacation and holiday additional expenses for overtime to cover the people that are on vacation. So we'd have to add that.
You did that, right?
There is no schedule that I was given, so I presented the numbers for full-time, 2 additional full-time people, because the way it was told me is the schedule will take care of those openings.
But those
Yeah.
full-time people, if we hired a full-time person, they would be on vacation at some point in time.
And I would cover their vacation just like I cover their officer's
Right.
vacations. It wouldn't be any
So
different.
it-
I wouldn't
so
have
the
that in my
salary-
overtime.
Somebody, so
Right.
it would be.
It wouldn't be
So if there are 2
additional
weeks
to
with
this.
2 additional weeks paid, somebody else is going to have to cover for those hours.
So their earned time.
Right.
So it'd be their regular wages, so it wouldn't be a time and a half.
That's right. Be-
So it'd be 2 additional per
So they would
person,
shift
so
adjust
four-
for the,
total
like
of
they do
4
the patrol
weeks,
officers.
160 additional hours wages on top of this.
No, it wouldn't.
If
How do you
have-
cover vacation?
Why wouldn't we
They,
make do?
they shift adjust.
Like we do now.
Which, whatever's the most
If someone takes a
economical.
week off.
If we can do it with shift adjusting, if we, if they're gonna take a planned vacation, they give us notice for that, and we'll shift adjust. And how we keep costs down on overtime when it comes to vacation varies. What do you say, Karen?
Right, if one of the dispatchers takes vacation and they only have 3, they're covering 120 hours a week. But now you're down to 2, it's only covering 80. Someone's gonna have to step up for some overtime. So,
Well, what do you do now when your dispatcher calls out or sick, whatever?
It varies. We go to Belknap, or, I mean, I know we've had Matt Dawson coming in on his 4-hour block
Lisa.
dispatching.
So could
We've
we
had
not
Lisa,
do
we've
that
had
same?
Liz Murray. So, these are options, and we can always explore. It doesn't necessarily cost us anything to have a couple part-time dispatchers on our rotation. Because they're not costing us to be there. We have dispatchers now that are part-time, that if we call them and they're available, they could come in and cover a shift at probably much less than, what it's going to be for an overtime rate of one of
But
these.
that's in addition to this
So-
proposal.
Right.
Yeah, because it's like the first year, they
It's
would have
adjusted.
2 weeks vacation, right? So
Right.
we would have to also calculate the additional 4 weeks of pay.
Right. I
For
mean,
the
there's a way
first
around
year?
their vacation.
We already have a person that's on staff that takes vacation.
And calls out, and right now we're filling in with Belknap and making do.
Yeah,
But
we
a
would
first-year
agree.
employee,
Well,
first-year employee.
Even if we
give
looked
4
at the
weeks
second
vacation.
year,
Well, they get 8 hours a month.
It'll be ours,
because we're
correct.
encumbering the
That's not
town
for-
for
We don't budget
these funds
for
for
paid time off.
eternity.
Thank you.
I mean, that, it's usually taken out of my overtime line.
They cover it.
If it does occur overtime. pretty
Well, let's just,
cautious about
let's
it.
not, let's
We-
not
I
have
hardly
it.
ever. We're pretty resourceful.
Would, in a scenario that we lost one of them, they went to another job, couldn't replace it, would Belknap jump in and cover that shift?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to them a couple times this week, and our relationship won't change at all. They're there to support us, be there for us. We've always had a great working relationship with them. And there could be times there were storms where they went down and we cover them.
Will these be rotating shifts?
They
Or
will.
will each person be bound into the day shift or the...
You know, we've
midnight?
thrown that a lot, you know, out there, you know, and ultimately the chief has the final say of the rotation, but I think in order to give everybody, you know, a chance to have a night off, a weekend off, you gotta go through a rotation.
Right, that's
and-
why I
And be
asked.
fair.
And be fair, because, you know, if we do 3-month rotations, you know, we tried to find out what's too long a rotation, what's too short of a rotation. I think 2 or 3 months is the average rotation. Then I can know that, hey, you know, during the summer, I'll probably have a chance to have weekends off and do that, have nights off, evenings off with the family. So I think we have to go through a rotation.
Well, I also suspect that the day shift is probably going to be different from the night shift.
Totally.
So that
different,
if you
sure.
have that rotation, then every one of your,
Gets it right.
each of your employees is going to be used to
Right.
all the different nuances of each shift.
Yes.
Right, and the patrol right now, your rotation is every 3 months, right?
I believe.
And we were talking about 2 for dispatch.
Right at 2, you know, and I have talked to Belknap about rotations, what's too long, what's too short, and I think it was either 2 or 3 months, I'd have
Yeah.
to look, but it was in that area.
Yep.
More questions?
Yes.
John?
Okay, so we're just short of tripling our dispatch costs. Why would we not go to the voters and wait until March and bring this up at town meeting to do such a major change in personnel in this way, as opposed to doing it right now?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to everything we've discussed since the first meeting. The safety concerns, the paying officers do data entry, get them on the road, we lock our door at 4 o'clock. I think all of us, or every citizen has experienced that. Coming in, the door's locked, you can't even get an application, you can't file paperwork. So, you know, I don't see any reason to continue to push this off when the need is there now. I think we all agreed there was a need for 24, but I think right now what's best for the town and will solve a majority of the issues within the agency is 16 now.
They're dealing with some pretty tough stuff out there right now with this drug crisis, and whether it's a shoplifter or someone driving down the street or some guy unconscious in a parking lot, it seems like every call involves heroin or fentanyl, so a shoplifting arrest where the guy's got heroin on him takes it from a half-hour arrest to a 3-hour arrest. If they get a call to McDonald's for an unconscious person, 20 years ago it would have been he fell asleep. Today it's because he overdosed. So the amount of time and the nature of the calls has changed in the last few years, where they're just much busier, and to continue to tax them with data entry and coming back to the PD because someone found a wallet in the parking lot of Walmart when they're, you know, trying to deal with the serious stuff is just hard on them, you know, and that was the whole reason that we started to look at this, because something had to give. It was just, we're asking too much, I think, sometimes.
Chief, do you mind if I say something? Go ahead. So I just want to take like through a typical night on a midnight shift, okay? If you're working a midnight shift and you work for the town of Tilton, you're through Belknap, you're competing with 10 other towns. Alton, Belmont, Samerton, Gilmington, Barnstead, everybody who's calling on the radio going to emergency calls. If you listen to a Franklin dispatch, Franklin is able, our numbers would skyrocket if we went to a 16 or 24-hour dispatch. Guys are not going to put in calls or contacts that they're having with people simply because they don't want to do the data entry. If you listen to a Franklin dispatch all night long, they're going to say, property check this on Central Street, property check the high school, property check here. A guy is not going to call into Belknap and say a property check in Tilton. Nate Morrison's a great example. Sergeant Morrison, when he used to work midnight shift, would come back for 3 hours and put in 60 calls for service of property checks, because he would go around to every business in Main Street and on a call for service write down that he had property check. We're not going to do that. because I'm not going to come back for 3 hours and sit at a computer and go through that. Every traffic stop that I do, when I stop a car, I have to call on the traffic stop, I have to give them the information, I have to write down the information on a call for service pad, and then I have to go to the police department and I have to enter that call for service into the computer system. It's 3 steps for one traffic stop. If I have contact with somebody who's suspicious, I'm not going to document that information, because you talk to any dispatcher at Belknap, and every single one of us who's worked here, they have personally told us, we don't care. We want to know if you're okay and if you're clear. That's it. We don't want the detailed information of the call. We don't want to know if you're going to follow up with the mom and if you're going to check in tomorrow. They don't want to know. They want to know if you're there, if you're okay, and if you're clear. Because they're competing with 10 towns to get in that information. I spoke to Selectman Fogg the other day to try to give him just a personal... I understand that it comes down to the almighty dollar. As a taxpayer in Canterbury, I understand that. But at the end of the day, it's easy for people to not understand the day-to-day of how a police officer does these things. Prime example, a week ago, I have a motor vehicle stop on Lancaster Hill Road. It's 4:30 in the afternoon. It's busy, but we switched over to Belknap. As I see a car, there's 2 people that seem highly suspicious. They're making furtive movements, or sticking their hands underneath the seat of their car, and I want to get up on that car because I want to make that drug arrest. I want to make our area safer. I go to pick up the radio because I want my fellow officers to know where I am in case something happens, and they say, as I go to mic up, 111, which is in Alton, is talking about bumper cars where 2 people have crashed into each other at the high school. Dispatch says to them, hey, you have 2, now this is exactly how the transmission is going to go. Hey, you have a calling party at Alton. That person is reporting 2 cars that are crashing into each other. They've written down a temporary partial plate. I've run that partial plate. Well, meanwhile, this whole conversation is I'm sitting in my car wanting to get up to that car. It comes back on a silver Audi to Ryan Martin out of Concord. The other car is a unknown license plate. Again, I'm still sitting here. Okay, I'll be en route. As I go to mic up, 603 is going to do a traffic stop in Gilmington. I'll be 1089 with New Hampshire, blah, 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 on this road. As I go to mic up again, 152 in Samberton is clearing after-school traffic. It's now been 3 minutes that I've been sitting there trying to get radio traffic that I could get up on that car. Now, most officers will tell you, we sometimes go against the rules, and I'm just going to get up on that car because I want to get up there and make contact with them, and I'm not going to call on that car stop. And then I'm going to take a round, God forbid, and now I'm going to be calling for help, and people aren't going to know where I am because I didn't call on that traffic stop. So I understand it comes down to the almighty dollar. I understand they have JOBs, and I understand they can go in later, they can come after 5 o'clock, but 2017 is a lot busier. Today's day and age, we are really, really, really busy. There's a lot more calls. Our calls are going to skyrocket when we have our own dispatcher sitting in there that we can just pick up the microphone and tell them, and it's going to go into the computer. Because human nature, we are going to be lazy and we are not going to put stuff in. So every time I give somebody directions, or I pick something up out of the road, or I have contact with somebody suspicious behind a building, those calls aren't going in right now. So we absolutely, I don't really get into the politics, I never come down here, but I'm telling you, as a police officer, as my anniversary this month, working here for 5 years, we absolutely need a 16-hour or 24-hour dispatch. It is unprecedented how much we need it. Belmont has it, we're just as busy or busier than Belmont. Alton, other agencies have it, Franklin has it, we're just as busy or busier. And it's an absolute necessity. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I can attest to that meeting with Sheriff Moyer, Sergeant Wright, and the chief at Belknap basically said Tilton is extremely busy, 16-hour dispatch is very reasonable to ask for, that they don't have the airtime and they do have to wait, and basically what all they have time for is for them to give them codes, so numbers as to what they're doing, which when you're looking back at that doesn't really help anybody to find out what exactly went on, and it does make you liable for not just your safety, but if you're looking back the next day, a week, however long, what really went on. It's your word versus their word, and they don't have the time. And I think, and I asked, well, is it reasonable to want that time on the radio. And, they said yes. Obviously, ideally, you could report these things to your dispatch, but they just don't have that staff, and the county doesn't have the budget to hire more staff. So it really comes down to safety. And I hear what you're saying about just going, you just want to make contact because you're trying to protect the citizens. It's the safety of the citizens. As a nurse, sometimes, I do things even though I know maybe it's not per policy, but I know what's safest for the patient. So you might do something without an order and that really puts you at risk. So I hear what you're saying.
Any more?
No, just, one thing I've observed, and one of the big things is having all the information so that when the voters come back to us as selectmen, we just got we do have the information to share back to them, so, and that's real important. One of the things I have observed, and having to go down to the police station, as Peter mentioned before, for just some different things, forms, or to talk to somebody as a citizen, you would either have to take time off of work or go down there and wait for an officer. Even if you're just picking up a form, somebody would have to be called in off of patrol to drive down there, to go inside, get you a form and hand you a form, and then to go back out. So it's really tough on people, and I've heard people ask, when are they ever open? There's a police station, they're never open. So, but that's the main thing is, how we show the voters that the importance of this and why it would be useful in this day and age, and why 5 years ago it was different.
Does anybody else have anything to add or ask? Jane?
I think, speaking as a taxpayer, I think the day's coming soon when we'll need a 24/7 dispatch. I think you're making a good concession by what we're talking about tonight, just to do the 16-hour. It would be much easier to swallow in an increment. And if you can, as a taxpayer, instead of you coming forward and saying we're putting 24/7 dispatch, it's going to cost us $360,000 total wages and benefits. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow. In an incremented fashion this way, I think it's much better. We can't fight the inevitable. We don't, this isn't Mayberry. We're growing faster than these guys can keep up with it. It's service-wise, I said to the chief the other day, there's nothing better than seeing the police car drive by my house. I love that. And the more they're in the station, the less they're driving through the areas.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Right.
Any more? All right. Does everybody remember the motion that was made? Go to 16 hours. Was there a time frame on that motion?
It was not.
Nope. I would say
Do we want to make a time frame?
I think the last time we had said fall, we didn't label it, but
We're trying to do it by November 1 or something.
start by November 1.
Motion maker?
that I'll amend it to beginning November 1.
Seconder?
Second.
Yes,
All right, all those in favor, did you want to say something more? I'm not looking at me. Anticipation, all right. All those in favor of the motion on the table, please signify by saying aye.
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 Come on,
It's
squeeze it
24
out.
cents. It's 24 cents.
I'm willing to pay $24 a year for the
Yes,
extra
okay,
distance.
yes. Yes, okay, that
my
might be the
God,
last
big one's
yes you
coming.
get, but yes.
Is it?
All right.
Or will it be
Thank you,
back
thank you.
next week?
The motion is unanimous. Motion carries November 1st, 16 hours. You are going to rotate these schedules. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
In the minutes, please be explicit on the description of how this is going to be, the rotation of the schedules, 3 separate, yada, 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 all right. Wow.
Thank you, board. Thank you. Thank you.
And I got a king. Voted
Let
yes.
me know, I want to do the second interview.
It's like instant headache. I'm more inclined to, I wish it was going to a meeting.
Do you have an agenda?
We do it. Because here's the thing, this is going to be much more difficult if town meeting decides to not come.
You're welcome.
Finance, IT Director, hello.
Hello. Well, I'm here to talk to you about
Kevin.
the 2018 budget. And fortunately, with your last motion, I'm happy to say that the budget that you have in front of you reflects the action that you just took. So,
Remind reader.
as of 9 o'clock last night,
Before we
when I was
go any
asked to change
further,
it.
we do have a motion that was made to go 24/7. Should that motion be, where's our Joyce? We made a motion in August to have this,
Joyce?
to go 24/7, and I'm wondering if there is some action the board has to take, because this motion that was made did not replace that motion, that wasn't the language.
Yeah, to rescind the 24-hour.
So do we have to?
Did we motion to do, I thought we were investigating.
No, we
No, we
motioned.
We made a motion in August, I had a copy, you did, and
Yeah, it was an actual motion.
it's up there in the well.
So we have to make a motion to rescind the
Right
motion
here.
24/7.
Who made it?
Selectman Constantino moved, second invite for discussion by Catherine Dawson to implement a 24/7 dispatch expansion effective January 1st, 2018, with the understanding to begin with 1 full-time, 1 part-time for a 16-hour coverage in the fall of 2017, salary at an hourly rate commensurate with experience. All in favor, motion carried. So this motion still stands. And this
So
is-
make a motion, we rescind the prior motion of 24/7 dispatch.
Do you have a date on that, please?
Second.
Date?
The date
Catherine?
is,
The date the motion was made was August 17th. All right. All those
Aye.
in favor of the motion on the table, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I missed aye for the,
All right, so the motion carries. All right, sorry, Tim.
All right, no problem. So you should have in your packets my report that looks like this. It has the budget attached to it. And I would just caution you to take your last week's raw budget and just toss it out. There were a lot of corrections and changes to that, as I was asked to bring up what we had at the time, so that's what I did last week. So on the report,
They're dated, right? I don't have to look now.
what's that?
The budgets are dated, I don't have
They
to
are
look for
they
it
are
now.
dated. That's correct.
9/21.
They're all dated at the bottom, and you'll also see at the top where it shows the expenses as of date. That also gives you an indication. So, as I mentioned, Chief Cormier late last night let me know what was likely to happen today, and so I reformatted this to be the 16/7, since it is a departmental request. And the other big portions in the budget are that we estimated health insurance to go up 5% in the new year. We won't have the numbers until later in October, so this is just as a placeholder for now. As you're aware of the dispatch increase, prior to the increase, the police budget was up $31,402. So,
Can I just ask, was that due to payroll?
a number of different things, but primarily officers' wages, yes.
contract.
The contract, yeah. So, as you can see, the difference of the 2 full-time positions with benefits, what that added. And then in Public Works Department, there's a new full-time hire for that department, and when he comes before you to discuss, he'll go through, it's 6 full-time and 1 part-time person, and that is a discussion regarding the parks. So he'll be bringing that forward at some point, but it's in here to reflect the departmental request. In addition, in the administration...
Again, please, on parks, please.
Sure. So with the addition of the parks, taking on the parks, maintenance and landscaping, and he would have to go through the plan with you himself, but his staff would be 6 full-time and 1 part-time, whereas right now it's 5 full-time and 1 part-time. So the increase in his budget is due primarily to a full-time hire.
And that's built in here?
That's
already?
in this budget, yes. In administration, with the sad retirement of our current town administrator, we'll be looking to hire an administrator in the 4th quarter of the year and have them start. So we budgeted in a 2-week overlap, and unless and until the board gives me any indication as to salary range, right now the salary for the new person is in at $75,000. Annual salary, which is a reduction of about $8,000 from current. And then lastly, the other big change in this budget is with Sea Light refinancing and paying off the note they owed the town. We saw a reduction of $143,500 in debt payments. So, and that shows up in the finance department. And I'll go through what offsets that. But these are the really big items that are affecting the budget. And on that cover, I've also shown just graphically how that all lays out. And when we get to a more finalized version of the budget, where we have all the complete figures from the outside agencies and from our other groups, I'll have a more complete statistical picture for you as to how that relates to prior years, the growth of departments, things of that sort, in a graphical form, and also just statistics. So, because it's helpful to explain not just the dynamics of something, but also the data behind it. So in any event, looking at the budget itself, and I'll just go through the first summary page. So as I've mentioned, administration, we're looking at a 4.2% increase right now, and that's primarily due to medical plan changes, as well as the overlap of the town administrative hire, and also some money for advertising for that hire.
Can I ask a question? We have the chairman of the budget committee here. Do we have another copy that
I do have
chairman
another
could look
copy.
at?
Yep.
Might
I brought one with me just for that very purpose.
information.
It's a draft. Draft, Jane.
I'm
Draft.
dragging her into this.
What is the final, Joyce, what is the final date our budget is due by RSA, not by when the budget committee wants it, but by RSA, what is the final date?
For the budget committee?
No, by RSA. So many days before town, blah, blah, blah.
You would ask that.
And I'm just thinking of insurance, there's still some things up in the air.
Let's see, where is it here?
Well, the last day for petition warrant articles is February 6th.
Okay.
So that's the last thing you would be working on, so February 6th.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Somewhat. I'm just thinking of every year there's always something that comes up.
We generally deliver the budget to the budget committee in November.
Sometimes December.
And then we have to come back and give them a new budget.
Well,
Usually the first week of December we end up
I
doing
wish
it.
the budget committee would create their own budget, but that's okay, that's just me.
so in any event, looking at this cover page, there's, as I mentioned, in administration, there's a 4.2% increase. And that's split between the medical plan changes and the TA hire, town administrative hire. In town clerk tax collector, the increase of 1.6% is due primarily to the town clerk tax collector's salary. And when you look through the detail, and when she comes to speak to you, you'll see that a lot of our expense in elections and registration has to do with, obviously, how many elections we have. In 2018, we'll have 3 elections, so that's driving some of this expense for moderator, supervisors of the checklist, election registration costs. We have to pay the company to program the machine, the voting machine, all that sort of thing. So in any event, That 1.6% is partly due to the number of elections that we have this next year compared to 2017, where we only had one election, and then also the increase for the town clerk tax collector salary. In finance, there were two primary drivers there. One is we now only have one debt issue for the town in long-term debt, which is our USDA debt for Lockmere Sewer project, which was refinanced through New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank, and that is our last remaining
That's the
long-term
95?
debt. Excuse me?
Is that the 95,000?
There's principal and interest if you're looking down in the detail, but yes. So the reduction that we saw in the business park debt payoff was $143,500. So that's the payment that we won't have to make in 2018. However, I'm projecting that we're going to have increased borrowing costs for our tax anticipation note of about $4,400. So that's why that nets down to a reduction of $137,514. So there's a 30.2% reduction in that particular budget. In IT, I've been able to hold most costs down, and particularly in hardware. I've made use of a lot of hardware that we've been able to get from the court systems. And in fact, just this week, I was able to get 3 more additional systems and 10 chairs and a table for the town. So wherever we can get decent equipment, we get that from them. So I was able to lower our hardware costs. But this also includes, and the increase is primarily due to a module that the police department would like for evidence processing.
How much is that?
It's $2,500 and $450 annually for maintenance. And what
Say that again?
It's
$450.
$2,500 upfront
purchase.
cost. Right, and in the second year and thereafter, it'd be $450 of maintenance for that particular piece of
So it was a
module.
fee.
A
And
year?
Per year, $450 per year fee. And this is for all of their evidence processing, barcodes, tracks it. They can use it for inventory, so on and so forth. In land use, the 8.7% increase, well, it sounds like a lot. It's $10,000, and it's due to the effect that the technician is budgeted for the full year now versus last year. It was just following town meeting through the end of the year. In the police, did you have a question?
yeah, so the part-time technician, how did it become full-time?
It's not full-time. It's budgeted for the full year,
Full year.
as opposed
I thought I
to...
heard you say full-time.
No, full, it's,
Full
if I
year,
did, I
part-time.
apologize. It is due to the fact that last year it was budgeted from April on.
Yeah, full year part-time.
And, not knowing whether it would be approved. In police, we've already discussed, it was originally a 1.5% increase, so now it's a 7.5% increase with 2 full-time dispatchers. They will advance to a second step in the during the year, so they'll advance from $18.75 per hour to $19.50 per the contract, and that is built into this budget. The Public Works, as I mentioned, with the addition of the parks, and primarily Riverfront Park, he's going to be talking to you about increasing his full-time staff by 1, so the total staff will be 6 full-time and 1 part-time, and that is what accounts primarily for that increase.
What is the increase cost? What wage, what salary?
I believe it, the wage was $17 an hour.
What's the gross with everything, retirement, because it's a full-time position? With medical.
Yeah, the wage itself is $35,000. We budgeted a family plan at $24,400. So the total cost, including everything, life, disability, retirement, wages, all taxes, dental, is $67,000. And that's a worst possible case with a family plan. So it could be that or less. In sanitation, the increase of 4.3%, or $22,530, is not completely, but primarily attributable to the addition of the mobile home parks for the full year. So there's some additional collection costs that's paid to Pinard, as well as the tonnage costs that we have with the additional tonnage from those parks. And that was largely Jensen's, but that's the increase there. In health and welfare, this is primarily the general assistance line was increased due to the amount of activity. And then in the last two, we only have a few items that have come in so far between culture and recreation and outside agencies. And budgets are due tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yep. So we shall see. I have emailed the Parks Commission. Again, met with Bob Hardy last week, helping him get onto the monitoring system at Riverfront Park, and he indicated that he had something to send me, so hopefully I'll get it soon. As you go through the individual departments on the following pages, if you see an E in that second column, that indicates that it's an estimate. So you'll see them next to health and dental, and then when you get down into the lower echelons of culture and recreation and outside agencies, you'll see a lot of these, and those are just basically estimated based on the prior year, just so that we have an overall picture of how the total budget is looking. There are several notes as you go along indicating why something was increased or what it was due to, and as you sit down with the department heads, that should help give you some guide as to why those changes were made. And if you would like, I would be happy to take just a few minutes and go through information technology and finance, because there's very little to discuss on finance, which I haven't already discussed. And I can go over the plan for information technology, or we can do that at another time.
Selectmen, do you want to hear that now, or do you want to have time to peruse this and do it at another time?
Well, he's here, and we won't have to have him come in again.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
I'll be here. I'll be here at all your budget meetings.
I just thought I'd throw that out.
Yeah, but thank you anyway.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not bad, Tim.
A little bit behind,
All
but
right.
that's all right.
I won't take up too much time. So first, if we could discuss finance, because that's going to be the simpler. Thank you. So I handed you of course, oh my God. So I'm handing you the information technology one, and if you turn to page, let's see, where are we? Page 5. And in the second section there, you'll see finance. And in the shaded columns under 2018, and maybe this is a good opportunity too, just to go through how the report is laid out. So in the far left column, you have our general ledger account number. If there's notes, they would appear in that second column, which is blank under finance. Then you see the account descriptions, and then the next 4 columns describe our actual expenses for 2013, 14, 15, and 16. So it gives you a look back at those years. And then you come to 2017, where it shows the budget for 2017, our unaudited expenses as of, in this case, it's September 27th, and then what percent year-to-date those expenses are spent. Finance, if you don't already know, is always going to look bad from a year-to-date percentage, because our debt payments are front-end loaded in the year, and they're large. So, for instance, this year, when we were making our Business Park Drive debt payment and our USDA payments to the bond bank, they're all front-end loaded. So there's a portion of one that comes a little later in the year, but so the percentage is always skewed high. But in any event, So you can see the changes here. I've made some minor changes to postage, printing, and training. And I have been attending more training sessions and I'm booked for more training sessions too. So that's something that I haven't had the ability to do in some prior years. So I'm hoping to take advantage of just about everything Primex is offering now. You can see the changes to our debt, the $109,571 in principal and the $33,929 in interest. Those reductions equal $143,500, which was our payment for Business Park Drive. You can also see the increased TAN costs, so I'm recommending a $4,400 increase there. And even though we've only spent $11,733 year-to-date, we're currently borrowing, and in the manifest tonight is a small interest payment, but for the next month or two we're going to have some pretty high interest payments on the TAN. So I expect that we'll be exceeding the budget slightly for this year. And it looks as though rates may continue to increase. It's just really difficult to tell. I can tell you one other thing that I wanted to just add as it comes to long-term borrowing. In June of 2017, as you're thinking about the police station, so the municipal bond bank pools all sorts of different towns, different bond articles, and they create an issue that's sold in the marketplace where we individually would be too small to do ourselves or any other town like that. So by pooling them together, they get much better rates, and we get much better rates, and we have more protection in terms of a better bond rating because they're all pooled and there's less individual risk associated with any one given municipality. So in June of 2017, the bond bank had issues where for a 10-year bond it was 1.76%, 15-year bond was 2.34%, 20-year bond was 2.67%, which would most likely be the bond that we would be looking at 20-year. 25-year was 3.15%, and a 29-year bond was 3.33%. So just to give you an idea, for in June of this year, so that's not to say those are going to be the same in June of 2018, but I wanted to kind of give you an indication. So in any event, that is the picture of finance. Any questions on finance? Great. So for information technology, first I'll just go through, as I mentioned earlier, the reduction in hardware is due primarily to the use of free equipment. Now, free equipment comes at some cost sometimes. Sometimes there's something missing, and I have to get a piece from another piece of free equipment that we had, kind of piece it together. Oftentimes I'm having to buy licenses, but still the overall cost of these is so much less than going out and purchasing a new system. So if you walk past my office and you see, gee, I've seen those systems sitting there for months. Well, that's because there's practically nothing left in them. It's just the case that you're seeing, and just because I just don't have room, sufficient room to store some things. But and in fact, this last week we had I was able to get us 8 22-inch monitors from the bankruptcy court for free. So one of them was already used for the technician, land use technician. You can see it in portrait format over there. And anticipating that we would have a need for additional monitors in dispatch, so it's a perfect situation where we can make use of equipment. I'm very quick to jump on these things. Maybe sometimes we don't get exactly what we would like, but it's close enough that we can make use of it. I still have money for other items in here, more critical systems that will have to be new and will have to be replaced, and so that's hardware. In software, so software is a tough thing. All the software is identified with the exception of security software and miscellaneous utilities and desktop software. So when I say identified, our IMC module, which is what the police department uses, the annual maintenance on that is $8,039. So when we're talking about the $450 to add the maintenance for evidence, so in a year 2,
down the road, that $8,039 would also have another $450 tacked onto it. So there's always an upfront cost, and then there's a maintenance cost, and we have a number of modules. I also talked to the chief quite a bit about the number of users we have, because we've hit that number 13 limit many times, but given that these dispatchers are going to be off hours, it shouldn't be an issue. So outside of the application software for the PD, that's the single largest expense in software. We also have our tax collect software, clerk software, assessing software, and accounting software. And the balance of those make up that $25,832. The desktop utilities, there's $1,950 there, and then $1,450 for our security software. And I've spent more money this year in ransomware protection and malware protection than we have in the past, and I'm anticipating spending more in the future on this, because you just can't be too careful. Losing the data is just not acceptable, and security is such an issue. So I have enough money in here for additional licenses for the hardware that we get, and I have money in here to purchase additional licenses for ransomware protection.
If we took the evidence module out, what would your total line be increased by? The 1.9, what would that change it be?
Oh, it would be under. It would be slightly under.
So your whole budget would be under?
It would be under, yeah. If anything, if there's one thing that kind of keeps me wondering, it's, with all those things so tightly identified, it's what if I had to buy something, add a license where I didn't anticipate. Sometimes those things can be expensive depending on what kind of license it is. The SPOTS license is an expensive license. That's an $800 license. But so far we've been able to manage things within what we have. But that's kind of what keeps me awake at night sometimes, because I am very thin on the other types of licenses, having a little extra money there. But
So this is in your budget, we're not going to see this in the PD budget?
no, you won't.
Well,
So the question comes now, not with the PD, why?
For evidence?
Why all of a sudden now do we need an evidence module?
Well, they over the years, I think there have been different times depending upon the resources that they've had. So they haven't always had they haven't always been fully staffed. They haven't had as much resources to apply to evidence processing. And while they've done the basics, there's been a lot of cleanup needed, and they've been able to now dedicate an officer to that activity. So not full-time, but that's one of her duties. So that in straightening it all out and getting it running well, they've got to be able to show the I can't recall the technical term, but the chain of possession of the evidence all the way through from when they first take it. They'll be able to print a barcode, attach it to it, or a bag, or what have you that it's in, and then track it all the way through and be able to find it more easily, hopefully, within the evidence processing area, which is just jam-packed full of stuff.
So with a bar tag on it, do they have some sort of device that's going to go beep, 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 I found it?
Essentially, there's, because it
or is this just...
You can tag the shelf to say, here's the shelf and here's the item, so that it knows that that item is on that shelf, so that when you're going to look it up and you have to return something to someone.
There just aren't that many rows that evidence should get lost.
That
sounds more like a clutter problem.
I would.
Organization.
I'd recommend that maybe the chief take any of you through that would like to see it, just to get a look at it. It is. It's very involved. It's a very involved process, and I would defer to the chief too, as to the other reasons why this would be needed.
And then $450 annually?
Correct. So not in the first year, but in the second year, and thereafter it'd be $450.
$450 every.
$2,500 and then $450.
That's correct. Yeah. The first year it's $2,500, and then the maintenance is $450 each additional year.
And I have that on the note there next to the evidence processing, the evidence module. In services, so these are pretty much the same. There's very little change here. I've noticed or noted that we're getting closer to the end of our body camera contract. We're in year 3 of a 5-year contract. Let's see what else. All this is pretty much the same. I think this is the same amount as the prior year. And what this provides is this is all the Metrocast. This is the Google apps that we use in the PD in here. This also is all the Amazon storage that we use. So it's really critical to have redundant, reliable data so that we are encrypting and storing off-site certain of our data. So if there were ever catastrophic failures somewhere, or both buildings burned down or were flooded, that we'd be able to access the data. It takes some time to, reset it up, but at least it would be intact.
Why do you have Alert Tilton?
I mean,
Because
yeah, and then you said changing from, I thought we already changed it.
We did, and that's how much we're spending. I just didn't take that note out.
Okay, got it.
But it is the One Call Now system, and in fact, to date, I'd have to look. I think we've spent $780 year to date on that, and we have a big bank of credit that we have with them. So it's a per call type of system. So I think it's worked out very well for us. It saved us a good amount of money.
Is that the same as the school?
It is. It is the same.
Access it the same way?
I don't have any access to their system, but I'm having to do all the database maintenance on it. So I did all the conversion when we moved from Everbridge, and then I have a form on our website that people can fill out to either add or change their information, and then I go in and manually change our database, but we maintain the database locally, and then I upload it to One Call Now on a periodic basis, or before we're doing a message blast. The one that is somewhat high, the recording device maintenance, we don't have a lot of options there, and I wish we did, because it really annoys me that we have to pay $1,100 for them to do maintenance on this. This is the recording device that records all of our radio traffic. But there are no other options for that, and it is a critical piece of equipment. So outside of that, in communications, the telephone and cellular communications, they're all pretty much flat from year to year. We will be making a lot of changes in the Verizon contract very soon, because we have the new MDTs that are being installed this next week. And in doing so, they have built-in air cards. So we'll be decommissioning the old air cards and commissioning the new air cards. But that'll all be in this year's budget. And if anything, I'm trying to find a way to do more telephony through the cruiser, so that we don't have to pay for individual cell phones for the cruisers. But in working with the chief, even though we have that capability, it just seems as though the officers are more comfortable picking up a cell phone, because they don't want to use their personal phones to call someone. So
That was good old radio.
well,
We just spent how many hundreds of thousands of dollars on dispatch? Radio dispatch, right?
well,
Dispatch
You're
to
talking
the
about
radio.
this is when a victim or someone would call in and needing to speak to an officer, and it's outside of radio traffic. So where they'll be alerted to.
You wouldn't want it on radio.
You wouldn't want it on radio traffic. Yeah.
So we provide cell phones to make it convenient.
In the cruiser, they're assigned to the
To
cruiser.
make it convenient for customers to call the individual officers.
Often they could be informants, they could be victims, it could be a number of different things. But yes, and we've done that for years.
I know we have, and every year it makes me nuts to talk about it. I think it's an unnecessary expense. I just believe it's an unnecessary expense.
The other unnecessary expense that you might find that I don't have in the budget, but have looked at year to year, and it's becoming much more affordable, is the GPS tracking on all our vehicles. From a risk perspective, we have the capability for about now $20 to $25 a month per vehicle to be able to have a history and tracking of all the vehicles during the day, night, round the clock, where you can see real time where these things are. So there is a module for IMC that allows them to, for dispatch, to do this sort of thing. That's not incorporated here, and that may be something that they'll be looking at down the road.
Yeah, let's put the chief on
But-
GPS.
But this can be used not only for any town vehicle, so for plow trucks, for instance. And there are other municipalities that use these, particularly in plowing, where someone said, gee, your plow truck knocked over my mailbox, and, there's they want some, remuneration.
Yeah, cheaper to replace the mailbox.
Yeah.
In that case, it would, but if there was damage to cars or damage to a guardrail, damage to,
I would hope
things
the
in
plow
that
truck would
case.
stop and call police.
Well, and
Or cell phone.
in Concord, I happen to know that they've used that successfully to show that no, their truck wasn't even anywhere near that at the time of the incident.
Sort of like the body camera liability that we were able to save a couple of lawsuits because they were able to show that that's not exactly what
Right,
happened.
but in my book, it's still a little too expensive to really justify, I think, for the town. But just know that it is out there, and
How
it is.
expensive is it?
As I said, it's about $20 to $25 per vehicle per month.
So we have, 11 vehicles?
I think there's 18 police cars, and, no, 22.
What percent of the budget goes to the cell phones? Of that 70, 60?
The cell phones, it's really minor. I think there are 4 that we maintain, so roughly about it's going to be right around $100 a month.
So it's just the
because we don't
frontline guys.
have full plans on those phones. It's just calling, just calling. I'm sorry.
It's just the frontline vehicles.
Just the frontline vehicles. That's right.
I had a question. If we're paying for cell phones for them, then why don't we just put GPS tracking on, turn that on the cell phones and watch that?
You could if the cell phones are on all the time, if they're charged all the time. I mean, there's some.
Now you're telling me we pay for cell phones that don't get...
Well, there's the ideal and then there's the practical. And you heard a detective.
If they're not turned on, they don't need them.
Right, you heard a detective explain earlier, and I've seen where there hasn't been any activity on a phone in a given month. And I'm asking, why are we paying for this if they're not using it?
This is cheap.
Well, that's essentially what they have.
No,
They
it
don't
isn't.
make those, they haven't made those style for 30 years.
They do.
So in any event, it is a minor, it's a minor expense, but the takeaway I'd like you to hear is that what I'm looking at is trying to find a way using the existing wireless technology that we have, using voice over IP in the cars to be able to make those calls and save even that much more. So, but right now it's just not practical. But that's something that once it does become practical, I will look to implement because it'll save us $100 a month.
Nice.
If and when. So in any event, our supplies we've been managing our supplies a little bit better this year. I have set up a way for the departments to order their own toner, and I can see everything that they're ordering, and I'm keeping track on the higher cost ones, what we're looking at. And some printers we actually use compatible cartridges where they're not an important printer, but it's a convenience for someone. So on the black and whites, but on the color printers we're using the manufacturer's toner, and we've actually done, knock on wood, much better this year than in prior years. We're also doing a lot more scanning. I bought several scanners this year and implemented those, so we've cut down on some printing costs there. So in any event, that's pretty much it in a nutshell for IT.
Are these cellular phones set up strictly for making phone calls? Or do
Yes.
they have data?
No, phone calls. They have data available to them through their MDTs, so,
That's,
Thank you, Tim.
okay. Thanks. And you know I'm available if any of you have any questions on it. And-
Yes.
And just please keep in mind that, that these numbers, as we refine them, the budget figures may change slightly here and there. You know, we're looking to make sure that we've got everything as accurate as possible. And particularly as we receive things from the outside agencies and other people that we're waiting on. Thank you.
Thanks.
Joyce?
Where's my agenda? Here we go. Okay, items that require board action. We took care of number 1 on the PD study. I'll get those emails out tomorrow. MetroCast cable. Did you all have an opportunity to read the opinion from Attorney Kate Miller? And the next step would be that I would suggest, as she had suggested, that we hold a public hearing just as part of your regular business meeting for public comment, so that people know that the MetroCast will be no longer, and we have signed our franchise agreement to Atlantic Broadband. I did receive in the mail all the information that we had requested on the number of poles they have and wires and lines in town, and I forwarded that information to Gary Rover, who does our utilities.
so just schedule a public hearing next week?
Okay?
Anybody object?
And after that public hearing, then you would vote to sign the resolution, and I would forward it to, and what I'll do is I'll make sure you have a copy of the resolution before next meeting, so you have an opportunity to read that. Attorney Miller has reviewed the resolution, the FCC form, and the original letter that we had received from Atlantic and MetroCast, and she also had reviewed our franchise agreement, and as long as they've been in compliance with our franchise agreement, you should be good to go to vote to sign the resolution. Okay, purchasing policy, I'd emailed you some drafts, and we tweaked it a little bit, so it's in your to be signed. And it's interesting, at the workshop that I attended this morning at Primex on signing contracts, last Wednesday night I had updated a memo that the board had sent out in 2010, just reminding all of the boards, commissions, committees, department heads that only the selectmen can legally sign contracts and agreements for the town. So it's just another reminder, and they said that that was good, that we should do that annually. Remind them that only the selectmen have the legal authority to bind the town. Okay, Catherine.
One thing before I forget, when you send out notices to the study committee, well, it's not a study committee, the committee for the PD, make them understand that in the wonderful language you use, that they are appointed by the selectmen, not town meeting.
Yes.
They report to the town selectmen.
Yes. Okay, old business, I'm still working on it, Catherine. I just checked my email, I still don't have a response yet from Municipal Association, but I had sent to the board what I had sent.
Okay. So we'll have it for next week?
Yep. New Hampshire Solar Garden, I had a conversation with the individual at Eversource. Let me get to that, my copy. And these were his suggestions for questions to follow up with Mr. Keller. What is the timeline for their construction and operation? What other permits are required? Because there's a whole process that they have to go through. It sounded to me like he couldn't proceed unless he had a pilot agreement, a payment in lieu of taxes agreement, before he could really proceed to do anything, and that's not necessarily true. That's just for his own financing model.
That's right. They didn't want to proceed unless we were willing to enter into a pilot rather than assessing them for the true value.
Right.
They weren't going to go forward. So does that mean really the next step is for Lauren to do her, and I know she's looked at this and has an opinion, but for her to examine this and officially give us her opinion on pilot, or, so that's the next step.
Okay. And also that we should ask him to, and we had mentioned this, to send us a copy of the membership agreement, because it was still unclear. And it's a membership agreement with him. We are members of this production of solar energy. His company will have a contract with Eversource that says that they will return that to New Hampshire Solar Garden, and then from there it goes out, the rebates go out to the customers of New Hampshire Solar Garden.
That's why we wanted to keep it within town.
So we'll get
Some
that.
fancy writing.
Want to know that does he even have a lease with the landowner, or if so, is that something we could see? Also ask him to send us a copy of all the other New Hampshire municipal agreements he currently has in place. And that if we have any other questions, we are more than welcome to call him. And I gave you his phone number, and I wanted to call and find out more about the rebates. And so he said, well, we should check these things out.
Does anybody object for Joyce to send those out to get the answers?
Well, one thing from New Hampshire Solar Garden I've noticed over the past year or so, they like to talk about things, but they haven't sent us any hard copies of anything except for basically a flyer.
Right.
And, you know, I'd like to see this stuff in writing and explain, because all the answers have been rather vague as well. So, as opposed to, well, maybe we can do that, or we can look into that. You know.
How soon, that's good, that's very good. How soon can Lauren come in? Have an opinion and come in?
When is she?
She moved her date to October 19th, I believe, for next month.
For next month, October 19th.
I believe so.
Okay.
What day is that? Is that a
Thursday, third Thursday.
October 19th.
So can we have her
Yep.
schedule for the Board of Selectmen? Is that approved by everybody? Sound like a plan?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Very important.
That's really good. The other thing regarding the tax deed and the eviction notice, the next step is we need to file a writ of possession with the Franklin District Court. So I'll proceed with doing that because you have to wait. Normally it's 7 days, but whereas we have a unusual situation because we're taking the property by tax deed, we're not a landlord. We're evicting someone because now we own the property. It's 30 days. Gail, you contacted Jesse to see about filing the writ of possession, how we go about doing that, because that has to be done through the court.
Do we have to send them a bill for rent?
No, no.
I've been living there since we owned it.
We don't want to be a landlord.
He's still
We
been
want-
living there since we
I know,
owned
we
it.
sent him a letter saying we have no obligation to you whatsoever.
Treating him like a squatter.
But what about
But it is on our insurance.
But what about Peter Graves? What about the lot rent?
Well, my suggestion would be that when we convey the property, that we include lot rent in it. Back
Who's
lot
paying the
rent.
electrical bill?
I'm assuming he is.
We haven't
Right.
transferred it to our name?
No, I have not. I wouldn't do that until we put locks on the door. And we want to make sure we do this soon because it's
So really, the next
cool.
step,
We're
you need
going to
to
be in the situation we were a number of years ago with the Birch Street property.
Yep.
But whereas we're actually evicting, I want to.
You need to do it absolutely right.
And so the next step would be, is it okay if I go ahead and contact Peverly and Sons to schedule an auction date so that I can start the RSA 89 notice? Because we can't physically auction the property until the 91st day.
Well,
But we'll close it up for the winter.
didn't we have a similar circumstances with, I think it was Windy Hill, and they had a buyer for the trailer? And it says circumstances, I mean, justice may prevail or whatever.
To sell it to them. So we
Right.
should,
I mean,
Check
if
with-
we, right, if we,
You should check with the owner of this park.
if we could
right, we do have it as just the town meeting allowed you to do as
to do
justice
that.
may
So,
require.
and we did that before with the two that I know of, that we did, that the owner, it was a win-win for us and them at the same time.
Mhm.
We did that and didn't have to go to an auction, and they paid whatever was
Well,
owed, and-
there is a lien holder of record.
And the others didn't have any lien holder.
I'll check, but I don't think they did.
How much is the lien?
I have no idea. It just says that there is a lien. And we've noticed them, and we did get the return receipt
So now,
back.
as the owners of the property, wouldn't we be entitled to the information on the lien?
If I could get a person to talk to me on the phone, yep.
Well, it's one of those.
Is that the type of lien that it's forgiven, or, you know, how does that work?
Well, according to, if we take a property and sell it, which there would be some consideration for selling this, I'm assuming,
Right.
unless they're just going to just take it off our hands.
We sold it to the other one. It was a remuneration that we decided on based on lot
At the end
rent,
of the line.
based
Right.
on, we can't make a profit on it, but we recouped our costs.
Well, if we did make a profit on it, it would have to to that
Right,
lien holder.
exactly.
But
And we-
only
And that
the
lien holder
access.
The owner of the
also
access, right,
has to have an opportunity to
purchase it.
purchase it.
So you can find out how much that,
That's what we'll do. I mean, I'm getting worried because we're getting into October now, and he hasn't bothered to come talk to us and do anything, so
You've given him lots of overtures.
he's gotten lots, I mean, he didn't even respond to the eviction notice.
We have for 9 years that I've been on the board,
Have for what?
lots of opportunities. We've been in this situation, almost knocking on the door for 9 years.
Oh, with this individual?
And this time we took it.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so, I'll go ahead and do that.
Have you
Okay,
already got plans?
and,
Yeah.
oh God, I'm gonna have to do this last one from memory.
That's dangerous.
Peabody Street, what? What?
Did you do that?
No.
He said I have to do this from memory, and I said, that's dangerous.
I did talk to Tony today.
Oh,
Did you get my email? Okay. Peabody Street, have you had a chance to look at that at all? Because we never responded to the person that had made the complaint.
It is
We
what
make
it
a goal
is.
of getting back to everybody.
He's done that in more than one place in town, that people bring, especially on the one-ways, people bring their trash to that side of the street because the truck can only go one way up the street. How is he gonna pick it up on the other side of the street? He can't turn around and go back down. So there's no choice.
All right, so I'll go ahead and,
Does
I also
anyone
talked
see
to
it
Tony
differently?
too. I talked to Tony too as well, and he didn't recall ever saying anything about getting a two-sided armed truck. And he said they're very problematic and difficult, and it's twice as much stuff to go wrong, and it'd be very expensive if it's not in the contract.
Right. We have a similar dilemma where we're on a dead-end street. The last person on the dead-end street, he keeps bringing the tote down and placing it in front of my tenant's driveway. He can't drive in the driveway and he can't drive out because there's a bucket there. But I spoke with Tony, and he can bring it down to where we put ours, and that's where it's going to have to be because the truck can't
get
back
up there.
up. And at the dead end, he doesn't have the arm to get there. That's the way it is. You have to live with that. So we just got to make sure that that happens.
Did your situation get resolved?
I'm not sure yet. I had another note today. But I also took note of other trash barrels that were very similar in distance.
Because he said he would go up and check it out, but obviously you got a note, so I'll call him again.
Last spring, when we were discussing it, didn't Tony say if you had excess recycle, you could set it in a box on top of the bin and they would take care of it?
Yes.
So the last recycle, my neighbor had a box 2 foot by probably 4.5 feet, set it on top. They wrote a sticker out, stuck it on it, stood it on the ground. If it was too big to grab, they could have grabbed it with the arm because it was like a half-inch cardboard. So I don't know why, they spent more time writing out a note the note kept reciting the solid waste, not the recycle.
Well, maybe that's just something that Tony needs to straighten out with his drivers.
And
because he did say we don't have to bag recycle.
Or if you had the excess, you could set it in a box on top.
Right.
Right. And can you give me the location?
14 Ruby Lane.
Okay.
We've stuffed them in the bins of 10 and 14. So they'll be out next week, but now the covers will have to be up because we didn't cut it down.
Okay.
We'll see if that gets rejected.
Okay, and Matthew Drive, I got in touch with the individual that's on 27 Matthew Drive, and I meant to give you a little picture of how that road is, because if you remember, you have to go through Franklin on Shannon Drive, and then Matthew Drive comes out on Shannon Drive. So it's the intersection's in Franklin, and Tony said he would do it, but he can't get permission from the person in the end to allow his truck to turn around. The next place down is never really there, so they don't really have trash or anything to put out. They're not participating. So this gentleman's the next one down who wants it, and then there's one more closer to the road. So I spoke with them and said that Tony said that if they could make a space no longer than 100 yards in on Matthew Drive, and it's a Class 6 road, but they maintain it, and make sure that
Who maintains our Class 6 road?
They maintain it. They maintain it.
This is the end of Range Road,
Actually, it's the end of Pest House Road.
which is Range Road.
Yeah.
So this
Okay.
is the Franklin end of Range Road.
Yeah, he said that he could back his truck down.
And we gave someone permission to maintain the Class 6 road.
They do it on their own.
Okay, but
It's recorded at the registry that they're responsible to maintain it. That's the only way they got a building permit. So,
did the Board of Selectmen give them this permission?
yes, the selectmen have to give the permission for the building
I
permit.
just don't remember. There's been others in the past, but I don't remember this.
Well, it's state law. You can't issue a building permit unless they're on a maintained road.
Right.
Or if they're on a Class 6 or private right-of-way, it's up to the
So
selectmen.
they're using this section from their house out as a driveway, basically.
The section out of their house is a
Well,
driveway.
the
No, it's a
section-
Class 6 road.
Right, and they're maintaining it, and they understand that anyone else can use that road that they're maintaining.
They're not, are they Class 6 road, or are they just a private road? No, they would be a private road because Pest House is the Class 6 road, and
Right.
it goes nowhere near Pest House Road, or
So-
Rangeway.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get in
Okay,
my mind.
yeah,
I know
you're right.
Pest House Road has these little driveways
Right.
off of it, but I don't remember giving anybody specific. But
Anyway, he said that he would think about that, but in the meantime, because they've just been taking their trash down, and it's being accepted in black bags. So we had said at one point, because
maybe we
if they
should,
couldn't get pickup,
that's different.
we would
than-
give it, whereas Tony's trying to work with them where he would get them to participate.
So you're looking for a possible temporary solution.
Correct.
When the cheapest way is to give them stickers
Give them stickers
to put on their black bags,
to put on their black bags.
or they have to show their driver's license and identify himself to Public Works. I mean, really, this is a question for Brock. What does
Right, and-
he require for them to show that
Yeah,
they
there's
live?
4 houses on that unit.
Right.
They've been taking their trash there since day 1.
Well, Best Way would never go up there,
Right,
so they could never be part of any program.
right,
And the only way they could recycle was to bring it to Public Works.
yeah.
So it's
And
a
then-
lot different than the others that are before us, or the
Yes.
one that's before us now.
So
Years?
I just need to notify Highway, if they're gonna be shutting them off or just maintain until we,
Should we have her ask Brock if there's anything special he needs from us, and just let Brock work it out?
okay. I mean, I think that if Tony, because he promised us this wasn't going to cost us any more,
Right.
that if they can
They're gonna work it
make
out
a
somehow.
space so that he can back the truck in, but he can only back in so many yards safely. And we're offering that, then they should use it.
It's a public road, it's just not maintained. in the
I'm gonna double, because what Catherine said, I'm thinking this was a road that was created as part of a subdivision plan, which the town did not accept. So they went through the provision, it's RSA, it's in the building code statutes, that they filed at the registry waivers of municipal liability, so that they're on notice that if the fire truck can't get there, too bad. If the town doesn't plow it or maintain it, if there's,
But
that
still-
road washes out,
But it's still a public road, but
We just don't maintain it.
I guess
well,
Class 6?
no.
We don't maintain, we do not
It's not a
maintain.
public-
It's
Well, that's
not,
not a
that's what I'm
public
saying.
road
I think
either.
it's still a private right
It's a
of way.
private road.
Range Road, Pest House Road.
Right, but
is
Matthew
public.
Drive doesn't go anywhere near
Okay,
Pest
well,
House.
that's what I'm trying to
Yeah, it
put my
does, it comes
hands
off
on.
of it.
No, it comes off of
Because-
Shannon.
My
You wanna look at
mind
my
on-
map that shows Shannon, Pest House, and Matthews all hitting at the same point?
Okay, well, I'm going by the E911 map.
Okay,
That's a Google.
that's a Google. You want me to go to Google Earth and trace it that way?
I would go by my E911 or our tax maps
What will I say?
before I'd use Google. Anyway,
we find out
Yeah,
next
you,
week.
Yeah,
you can,
you bring up a good
In the meantime,
point.
you're gonna talk to Brock, he's gonna figure out identifying, you'll give him the addresses of these people,
Yep.
so he understands these are the only ones. Till we figure something else.
And the other thing is Gerald Drive. He's going to be printing up new flyers at some point, probably after the first of the year for the calendar year. They show Gerald Drive is on Wednesdays or Fridays. I don't know if I have the thing. And Gerald Drive is off of Colby Road. So it's Wednesdays. So they'll fix that. So Gerald Drive is on Wednesday. So the whole time he was gone on vacation, those are the only complaints that we had.
Nice.
It's really good considering all the changes.
Now, you reached out to Bittern Lane, right?
You mentioned that before. No, I have not.
Okay, I couldn't remember, I'm sorry. All right, so we'll do that, and we're in a holding pattern for Winnisquam. It's in DOT's hands, right?
Yes, but we'll go ahead and get an RFP.
Right,
and
yeah,
stuff,
right,
yeah.
but as
And-
far as ownership,
And I checked with Brock about the measuring the tree streets. Yes, I did send him that request. He said he just hasn't done it yet.
okay.
Now, is it all the tree streets or just the streets that Perno?
No, and I'd like widths on all,
Widths
if we're
on
gonna
all
do
streets.
parking and all, you want all street widths, so that way we can say, based on this width, here are your choices.
Okay.
I've had 2 people respond to the, giving us a bid for stamp grading or something decorative for Main
So
Street.
for sidewalks? Mhm.
So those will come. One was interesting, it was pavers.
Okay.
And so if anybody's over in Maine, Kittery Trading Post has a huge section of these pavers they're proposing for the sidewalk. And he said there's some stamped creek there that you can look at. That will show you this particular individual likes brick, but he's a brick mason, and he does not come. That's interesting.
Where would you put it?
He wants to do all our sidewalks in them.
In brick,
It's a bid, it doesn't cost anything, so
when we went to
it'll be interesting.
Primex this morning, because all of their walkways are brick. At our insurance
Oh, are
company,
they?
yeah. And so walking in, I said, oh geez, I would never know brick.
RFP,
Yeah,
you gotta maintain them.
I know, that's why,
And,
he was adamant, they were adamant.
And so I mentioned that to him, I said, I can't believe you're an insurance company and you have all these bumpy bricks out front.
There's a difference.
And they
between
said,
real
and
brick and
she said, well, did you
rubber.
see all the caution signs? I said, yeah, we have them on our ramp, which reminds me of the ramp. The guys did try
Yeah,
this
the
week.
pave.
They didn't succeed though.
No, they put brackets, and what the problem is that the brackets, there's nothing to attach the brackets to except that polymer, whatever that fabric is, and that's why they don't wiggle as much, but they still wiggle. So Brock asked if you could wait until he gets back from vacation, and they have a plan that they're gonna. He should really explain this.
And he told me about the plan.
He did, okay.
Just take a
Depends on whether or not we have the
steel
liability.
plate.
That's
That's
a
okay.
steel plate.
Yeah, but how big? That's fine, they can figure it
No,
out.
he's saying that they want to actually put in some posts in the ground underneath. So
Sonotubes?
he's the one you got to talk to. Yeah, but it would mean temporarily closing the ramp while they did this work, and then they put the ramp back on. Not the whole ramp, just the.
He didn't tell me that.
He didn't tell you that.
They'd
Okay.
have to, if you can put it.
That's the only. That's really the only way.
Okay, all right,
There's just nothing to really anchor it to.
all
And
right.
that's all I had. Oh, one other thing. Did you get the email from Gail that Don Carpenter, Virtual
Yeah.
Kennels?
Yes.
Yes. And he's selling the business to his son. So
Does
that's,
anybody have any questions for Joyce?
Yeah. I had one question. I didn't know if we figured out why the electric bill was 233% higher last month for the island.
oh. Did you ask Tim that? Or me? Oh, you asked him. You asked him.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
See if you can take a look.
Because he's,
Is there somebody living at the gazebo and has an electric heater or something?
What was this month's?
That was this month's, 233%.
it was
Still
still,
on that?
The last bill was.
We haven't got
compared-
a new bill?
But the last bill we received was it? Peter, do you remember which month that was?
Probably August, Bill. Because we saw it out like was it last meeting or the meeting before?
Might have been the air conditioning.
Meeting before last, yeah. Maybe they have an
the air conditioner in the island?
On the gazebo.
On the gazebo, yeah. It was just an odd one night.
Maybe
It
it's all
was
those
odd.
amplifiers that
It
the
shouldn't
bands
have.
use.
Something like that.
No. No.
Even
I
when
mean,
we've had Christmas lights?
But somebody could have
Up,
tapped
up.
can tap into the power there, they can tap into it.
Speaking of Christmas lights, we should be start putting them up now while we've got good weather. Never mind. Don't you stop. We need to start putting them up.
Can we wait until we have Halloween?
Well, yes, but then it snows, and then they'll say, "Oh, it's snowing out and everything,"
Christmas. the lights, the solar lights were left in the trees all season long, so half of them are destroyed.
Cut
They,
and everything.
the order was when they put them up, they needed to be taken down at least in the spring
Yep.
because they get vandalized.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to go out there now while it's warm, get them out and figure it out because they're going to be putting them back up. Out here, they don't have to. They need to take them out of the tree, the one that's left.
Yep.
But now we have electrical, which will make it more simpler.
Okay.
Just so they don't wait until freeze thaw. Anybody have anything else?
I'll go write that down right now.
I have,
Yeah, the electric.
I have 3 things. Not earth shattering at all.
You want to start?
One is the Vicky Vernon food drive, October 14th is not an available date. So I sent October 7th, obviously, because I don't think we can get the word out soon enough for that date. And when I called her, she was not available, but I left the person that answered the phone the dates. And then the woman said, "What's your telephone number? She'll call you back." And that's been a week, almost, well, Monday. And then I had Gail call. And she said that wait for the letter. So it looks like we wait for a letter. So we don't know what the date's going to be on that. Okay. And then if everyone that signed the bills today, you'll see that the senior center came in, the electric came in at $50 extra because there was a chewed wire. And I told Jane to go ahead and okay that because she was the one that was up there. And if the board wants to just okay that, it will come out of the town building and maintenance. If not, well, did everyone see the Did everyone see the?
Yes, I did.
The pictures.
Tooth marks.
I signed the thing too, so.
The wires were just pulled up from the fan and
Okay.
just left exposed, live exposed.
Put
The other
knife.
thing, we may want to talk about this next week, but I will bring it to your attention. And I did get a phone call on the having uniformed police required detailed versus certified flaggers. And if you remember, back in 2013, we wanted to amend the traffic I think it was called the traffic control ordinance, and in the to include the water company and the sewer. And I think you were the one that wanted.
We didn't include the water company because it's not part of town. We included the sewer because it's town. So we didn't include water district because they're a separate entity.
Well, we didn't even
Which include.
We didn't even include sewer because it wasn't acted upon.
Yeah, we all
We
agreed.
talked about it.
We
and
all agreed
on
that
it.
sewer is town, so there wasn't anything to agree. Sewer is town.
All right, let me finish. We agreed on that, and I made a suggestion that we added the Tilton Northfield Water Company, and we invited them not too short after that to attend a certified flaggers course that we put on. And when they were all sitting here, they said, if we send the water company, we always have Kenny Partridge do the work. Can Kenny Partridge's men also attend the class that you are putting on? And they did. So that was the intent, was to include the water company at that time, but we never really did. Now they have certified flaggers.
Do we have a roster? Because the ones flagging I haven't seen work for Kenny before. The regular ones are all in other spots.
They're certified that took the New Hampshire DOT class
I
that
can tell you for a fact
that put on.
one of the individuals that was flagging when I went through Tuesday did not take that course because I know exactly who he is. And he's really fine here. But the point is, We had a conversation, we did not include the water district into the town of Tilton because they're not. It's all up to the chief. If they're in a situation where they need a uniform flagger, just like sewer.
Right.
We are part of town. There was no decision for the selectmen to make. The fact is, sewer is town. But if the chief decides the sewer is in a situation that needs uniform flaggers, then they have to have them. The same with the water district. So there was really no decision to make. The district is not part of town. The sewer is, and that had to do with the fee that was charged for the uniform flaggers. That's what that conversation
No,
was.
it had to do with the flaggers, that had to do with details and flaggers because they were all went to the class.
If you read
and
the language, even the Tilton sewer would have to have a police uniform if for this.
If the chief deemed necessary. Exactly, exactly. However, but they could use certified flaggers.
Then nothing has changed, and that's the same with the Tilton sewer. That's the same with Public Works.
Well,
What
this
the
past
conversation
week,
was,
this past week, uniformed police officers have stopped the water company from doing what they're doing up there with certified flaggers.
because it was pretty dangerous one day. They had one flagger at the very beginning, but there was no one right down on the other end, and they had the trench wide open.
We should have been shut down on the spot.
Yeah, they
Did we
should.
ask them to
It was extremely dangerous.
last week?
If that was after Thursday's meeting and they did it this week,
That was this
at this
week.
point, uniformed officers only.
That was this week.
Burn me once, shame on you. Burn me
That's-
twice, shame on me. We
And
give you
That's what I
two.
thought you were getting at.
Then the
Yes.
next day when I went through, they did have certified flaggers on each end, but the trench was.
Right, right. But the other
When
thing,
that was wide open, there was one, and it
Okay.
was dangerous.
so the use of certified flaggers attended the New Hampshire DOT. I got that part. I'm good with that. But in our research, and Gail and I researched, that we really need to go back to Cindy is because our town of Tilton highway policies and regulations under uniform police required, we have all our signatures, and we dated it July 10th, 2014. That's all our Board of Selectmen.
I recall
Oh,
And then
that.
the chief dated it July 7th, 2014, but the town clerk tax collector dated
I
it.
saw that. She got the date wrong.
All right, so we really need to have that fixed now.
Did anybody bring it to her attention?
We haven't got
Okay.
What's the date?
it. We have to research it.
The minutes, it was done in 2014, it's clear. So the evidence would show that the town clerk just
Right.
made an error and
Well, I haven't seen that, so I don't know what we're talking about.
It's
It
You're
was the
talking a date, you won't tell me the date, so I have no.
No,
13.
we're gonna hand it down to you so you can see it's too convoluted to,
All I wanted was the date.
you need to see it.
One says 2013 and the signatures of the selectmen say 2014.
She's certified on, put the wrong year in certification.
That's all I was asking.
She's, yeah. She predicted the future.
Well, yeah, because if she approved it on July 23rd when it was amended on August 1st, that's pretty good too.
It's being researched.
It needs to be corrected. The minutes reflect the selectmen's date prepping goes is when I go.
Okay, that's all I got.
Good catch.
Let's go home.
Ashley? Peter?
Nah,
John?
Nothing really.
All right.
I'm looking out for you.
Quick thing. So if you notice on your agenda, it says draft. And that's because the PD, the chief, and Nate coming in was not on the agenda. That was approved. So they felt they couldn't alter that agenda when they got the information that the PD needed to come in. So
Who's they?
the
You?
administrative staff, Joyce and Gail. So I just wanted a consensus from the selectmen, if that happens again, that they're mistakenly left off, is there any problem? I mean, the agenda is a courtesy. It's not
Right.
required by any law. We do it as a courtesy. Is there any problem if the administrator recognizes that we've omitted somebody that we have told to come in to add her to our agenda?
Or just say amended agenda.
Right.
Well, you don't have
We've
to.
done that.
Just
We've
add
done
them
it.
to the agenda.
Well, do that.
We just
Like I said,
added.
it's a courtesy.
We've done it many times. We've just added it right on our agenda, as long as.
Good.
I just didn't feel like, once it was approved by Pat and Catherine, who do the agenda.
Right.
I didn't feel I couldn't reach either one of them,
Right.
unfortunately, at the time, at the
change
last
it.
minute to change it.
So I said, well, just to cover everything, just put draft up.
So, does anybody have any objection?
I have absolutely no agenda. No.
Anybody?
Objection to
So we
changing the,
to amend their agenda.
So we had, last week, the chief and Nate were going to come in to talk about dispatch. When the agenda was approved, that was inadvertently omitted. So when it was brought to their attention, they didn't feel, because it had been officially approved, that they could add them to it. They couldn't get in touch with either of us, so they put draft and added them.
I would have.
I don't think so. I don't think we should be adding things onto the agenda because people could be calling up and checking the agenda and not knowing that it's on there, the public. How do they know what we're going to talk about?
Well, we would not, so here's the thing, they still would have come in whether they were on the agenda or not, because we had asked them to. But at least if they could have yesterday put them on the agenda, they could have changed it on the website, and at least some people would know, oh, look.
Right. In the scenario that John's in, I would object to something. If somebody came in and said, oh, geez, I'd like to talk to the Board of Selectmen, well, you're not on
And
the
that's not-
agenda.
yeah.
That's very different.
And
That's a
not
different
what I
thing. We're not
suggested.
giving
I
them
said,
permission to do that.
In the future, similar instance where we
We
had
had
told
already said,
somebody,
right.
come in next week.
Particularly at Clark.
Yes. Right, exactly.
All right. So, for next week, if we could all, because this is going to come up for renewal of the Birch Hill Kennel contract. I had a resident call me, she was having problems with, she's calling them feral cats, but whether they're feral, stray, they don't belong to her or evidently the neighbors. And I discovered that no one responds to stray or feral cats. The police doesn't and Birch Hill Kennel doesn't. Even though stray cats can be much more, I'm going to say, dangerous than a dog.
I think we need to license them, equal opportunity.
I don't want to be there when you suggest that to the clerk. So, I had a conversation with the captain about it, and they do not respond to cats. If somebody dropped stray cats off at your property, and you picked them up and brought them to Birch Hill Kennels, you would be charged a fee. And if you called the police and said, hey, somebody dropped off some stray cats in front of my house, they don't pick them up. So we have a problem with stray cats that we have to work out. We have a dangerous situation, feral cats. I had an issue a few years ago with feral cats, and it was dangerous. A woman was feeding them, and as I was standing there talking to the neighbor that complained, here she came, opened this like 25-pound bag of cat food, brought it up beside the garage to the property she owned that she was renting, set it down, and by the time she came across the street, 3 raccoons came out of the brush and joined the cats in eating them. Now that's a very dangerous situation. They carry rabies. And unattended cats can carry rabies.
Do you, so are you suggesting that we talk to them to see what the cost would be to include cats?
I think this conversation probably needs to include the police because they're going to have to now react to somebody that calls and said, I've got this cat.
Coyote will take care
Who
of it.
knows if it's rabied, who knows where it
Do you ever get
belongs.
those calls?
And Birch Hill Kennels should need to treat cats exactly the way they would treat dogs.
I know from time to time we do get calls of found cat. I know Dickie and I went over to a neighborhood one time. A woman found the cat. We took a picture. We put it on Facebook. Within 10 minutes we had the owner and reunited the cat with their owner. So I don't think you could say we never deal with them, but feral cats are tough. I've been mauled by one trying to get them in the car. But I've called like the Humane Society and they have people that go out and they capture the feral cats and they try to they bring them back to the shelter, try to socialize them. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So you have to, for us, we have to think outside the box and try to make something like that happen. And we have in the past, so it varies on the type of call.
But we have a resident right now who has a problem with these cats, and it's been since Tuesday. No relief whatsoever. If that had been a dog, there'd been an immediate response. And they both carry the same danger. In fact, I think cats are more dangerous because young children are more apt to approach a small cat, corner it, and then be scratched and attacked by it.
What location?
What's the issue? The feeding of them, and
They won't leave her property.
Right.
and she's not feeding
She is
them?
not feeding them. They are scratching at her house, so they're causing damage. They are.
Well, I have a
Don't know.
Have a hug?
What are those
She doesn't.
things called?
I told her not to approach
Yeah,
them.
but what are the? I had an animal. I had to go and get a have a heart, trap the animal, take care of it. Dogs aren't, hanging around people's houses like this.
But we can't, leave our residents in this kind of situation where
If a child
there's no
ever got-
relief.
If you got scratched by one of those, it's more lethal than if you got, really, they're extremely lethal to you. They're very, very, very infectious.
Well,
We
they
can
carry.
always put something on our website, don't approach.
No, we have to have a solution to this. There has to be a relief. And it's gonna have to come from the police department and then probably to Birch Hill, because I don't believe Birch Hill Kennels, do they come out? And I was looking at their contract, I don't think they come out and.
No, the police bring it.
So if I called you and said, look, there's a dog, I'm probably not a good example because I've got a dog in my yard and it's growling and acting very offensive and, well, yes, would the police not respond?
No, we would.
Exactly. But if I called and I said, I have a strange cat in my yard that's carrying on the exact same way, clawing at my door, and I just had one of my grandchildren come in and it, tried to attack them, the police would not respond.
I know that in the past I've had the Humane Society or Birch Hill come out with a have a heart trap and try to trap it for us. And I think if I called Don, he would. I know the Humane Society's done it for me in the past in Plymouth. And so it's just for us, there are people out there like volunteers that they go out and they trap these and try to.
A resident shouldn't have to wait 3 days.
No, call me if it happens.
Well, we need to have something in policy that they can count on and know that if they call the PD, they're going to get relief from this. So let's bring it up next week. There's just one other thing, and I just wanted to make aware of. I attended Monday night the state, I'm going to say it wrong, fire award ceremony in Concord at the city auditorium. And Chief Sitar sat with us, which was very nice. But so all of these departments are getting these awards of valor, et cetera, and all of a sudden they call up Captain David Hall. I was like, oh, that's us. And so he was awarded a medal for saving a woman's life. She was in the river. She had gone swimming, thinking that, in the place she'd always gone, the water was the same, not too active. But evidently they must have opened the dam because there were undercurrents. She ended up getting carried down to the dam. Captain Hall comes down and grabs a kayak that he's not fitted for, goes out and tries to help and save this woman's life, trying to throw her a line so she wouldn't go over the dam so she could save her. Well, in her weakened condition, over the dam she goes. So what does he do? He goes over the gate in his kayak that doesn't fit him, and he does. He saves her life. And the point of this is, I wouldn't have been there because I didn't know this. I was there because of one of my family members was awarded, and that's another story, a medal. He died in the line of duty. Chief Sitar was there for him, but I didn't see any commissioners, and to be fair to the commissioners, they could have been somewhere in the audience, but they weren't on stage. And I'm sure that other members of this board would have
Mm-hmm.
been there to say,
I would have.
what a great job.
Yep.
But, so the point is, we didn't know.
Nope.
I didn't know until I was sitting there, and he got called up.
When
But-
was this?
When it happened, but that was, what, in the spring? But
Oh, the one
this
that-
ceremony, I think we should have been aware of it. Our lines of communication between, our fire commissioners and others is not good. And I was talking to Gail about it, and, I got to thank you, Gail. She immediately called up Kathy Tobine and opened up a line of communication that somehow we have got to know. It was awful. Remember when we went through that period where these fallen soldiers would come up 93 and we didn't
Yes,
know?
yes.
And that was horrible.
That was horrible.
We weren't on the list. We didn't know. So somehow we've got to have more communication. We can't let these things slip by.
But they have their local awards ceremony, but they always have it on a Thursday night.
Yes, and if we have the lines of communication open, I mean, they must have the date set by now when they're going to do this. If we knew it,
We could go.
we would have enough time to say, we're not going to meet on this night. We could choose to,
And we could go.
and we could go. I mean, not to participate in the ceremony, but to at least be there in the back and say, yay, attaboy. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I'm done.
Good point.
Peter?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
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 7:56.